And good evening, everybody. Welcome back to World Online Racing. It's been so long since we've brought to you Tier 1 action, but finally we are back. November 2025 was the last time that you saw us on your screens. It's a pleasure to be back once again as we head into what's going to be a very interesting first season here on the F126 DLC for F125. I'm Nathan Richards alongside Omi for this season. Of course, Omi, you've done the odd race here and there in Tier 1, but this is your first time, full time here in Tier 1, and what's probably going to be a very interesting season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a great season. I, of course, did that race in Suzuka last season, and it was very good. It was very exciting. So looking forward to getting to see it across an entire campaign, and we kickstart right here, right now, and all the waiting finally comes to a close, and we can finally get a brand new season underway.
Certainly. And of course, we've got a lot of returning faces, but some new here to WOR this season. Of course, we're just going to have a run through some of the teams that we have on the grid. So first of all, we have Audi and Cadillac. So Audi, it's going to be Istvan Pukki and Angelo D'Ortenzio. Of course, Angelo's raced a few times in Tier 1, but this is going to be his first time racing as a full-time driver. Of course, alongside Istvan, part of the Williams outfit, as I think had consecutive top 7s in the last 2 seasons here in PC Tier 1. So I'm expecting a lot from him this season. Then we go to Cadillac, as we have Fabrizio Donoso, of course, has been here what seems like forever. I think has raced every season bar 2 here in PC Tier 1. He's alongside Keen Godendorp, who returns once again. Of course, I believe it's his first full seat as well this season. Of course, had a podium last time out in Abu Dhabi last season. So we'll have to wait and see if he can try and do the same here tonight. And then we move over to Racing Bulls, who of course have got Ulash Ozildrim and Tom Manley. A very, in my opinion, underrated lineup. 2 drivers that in the F1 Sim Racing season had very good results and a couple of podiums in there as well. So I'm expecting to see them do quite good things here this season. And then, of course, Aston Martin with Duncan Hoffland and Ruben Progenio. Of course, Ruben has also had a very successful tenure here in WOR. I believe with the championship back in season third place, back in season 13, and has had a couple of wins since as well. Duncan, one of those that also thrived well on console, moved to PC a couple of years ago now, and has once again been just fighting for those top results. And we head to Mercedes with Thomas Ronhaar, who is a man that everybody in the chat knows very well. Of course, has been involved in lots of the battling and action on and off the track in PC Tier 1. And of course, along with a championship in season 14, he's alongside Josh Idowu, who returns once again, of course, part of the Alpine lineup, but he's in Mercedes for this season. Excited to see what he can do as well. Then it's going to be Haas with Joris Krozen and Julian Klaffenbach. And, well, what a story it could have been for Julian last season out, where he lost the title by 9 points, as he only scored 10 points in the remaining 4 races. He's alongside Krozen, who, of course, has had a win and had a remarkable finish of 4th in season 18. Then we head to Williams and McLaren, where we have Nicholas Longay and Alvaro Caraton. They're not here tonight, unfortunately, but they are here for the full season, of course. Nico, one of the most successful drivers here in WOR PC Tier 1, of course, as a runner-up in season 15 and had his championship back in season 12. Jake Benham and Alfie Butcher line up in McLaren, another very strong lineup, one of my favourite lineups for sure, heading into this season. Of course, Jake was a inaugural champion in season 11, was a runner-up in season 14, so he's been at the top multiple times, just not in the recent seasons. And then, of course, Alfie Butcher was a reserve last season, but got 2 podiums in his only 2 races that he took part in. We're getting near the end. 3 teams remain, of course. Alpine, Otis Lawrence. He's definitely the man to be talking about currently. Current F1 Sim Racing World Champion. Currently WOR PC Tier 1 Champion. He's alongside Danny Berejnay, who's been here for a very long time in PC Tier 1. And, of course, finished in the top 10 last season. So I'm sure him and Otis are going to have a fantastic season alongside each other. And then we have Ferrari, Ismail Fassi, who basically had the same story as what he had in F1 Sim Racing. Lost out to Otis Lawrence in the final race of the season. And he's going to be alongside Barry Burman, who hasn't featured that much in WR compared to other leagues. So We'll see what he does here this season. And then we have Red Bull, Jarno Opmeer and Freddie Rasmussen. Of course, Freddie, despite being probably the best sim racer there is, or at least one of the best sim racers there ever is, he's only competed in less than 2 races every season. So we'll see if he changes that this season here. And of course, Jarno Opmeer, I don't think we need to say much about him. He's the only multiple-time champion here in WOR, and also is a 3 times F1 sim racing champion. So we'll see what he can do, and maybe go for 4. Right, that's enough about the lineups. Omi, heading onto the grid, of course, it's a very similar to what we have here on the lineups, but we have got a couple of reserves taking part.
Yep, absolutely. And breathe. Well, lots of drivers, lots of great talented drivers, and here they are that are taking to the grid around Abu Dhabi today. As Nathan just mentioned, of course, mostly it is the same, but we have got a few changes. Jan Halliday, it will be in the Aston Martin car. He will be in place of Duncan Hoffland, who is sadly not with us today. Luca Rapassa will be in the McLaren for Jake Benham, who, of course, is our inaugural champion. As was just mentioned, Gal will be in place of Longue. However, he'll be driving. He'll be, of course, driving in the Audi today, with Esteban Pukki switching to the Williams car for the opening round of the season. And then you've got Gabo in place of Alvaro Caraton. Last season, we had 59 drivers in total just due to attendance issues. So a lot of these names have had a couple of races. Who are now making their full-time appearance or will be making some more reserve appearances across this campaign. So it's going to be really a lot of fun to see how they get on. But yes, that's a quick look at our grid that we'll have coming our way for Abu Dhabi round number 1 of the season. Of course, the location where F1 Sim Racing just ended their season as well. So that is the lineups. But as I said, we're at Abu Dhabi today. But where else are we going across this campaign? Well, here is your answer. We'll be heading over to Saudi Arabia next time out on September 9th. Of course, we're kicking off in Abu Dhabi here today. Belgium will be round number 3. And then we'll make our way to Shakir for round number 4. And then Sao Paulo, Japan and Great Britain. That'll make up half of your season. And then we'll go over to Mexico City for round 8, Australia for round 9, and then we'll head over to Netherlands for round 10. That'll be on November 18th, and then it'll be Shanghai, November 25th for round 11. We'll go to Spain for round number 12, and then it will be Austria, and then we will conclude our campaign at the Circuit of the Americas on December 16th, a circuit which has delivered us with lots of iconic moments over the years. Let's see whether we're going to add some more there and across the other 13 circuits that we have in store in season 24.
Certainly. A great calendar. Lots of tracks that promote overtaking. Some of them are definitely going to be a little bit more difficult, but of course that's where you get drivers who are rewarded for their qualifying and, pace rather than their race pace. But of course, we haven't got long to go before we get into the session for the first race of the season. We'll bring ourselves back over to the camera screen and, of course, just have a little look in chat. So, of course, once again, a big hello to everybody returning here to the World on Road Racing chat. To those that are new, welcome. It's great to see you here for the first time. We've had a look in, and some people are saying, is this going to be a long race or a short race? This will be, well, I suppose it's a long race, yes, but we have full qualifying as well. We have a 3-part qualifying session, just like what you see in the normal Formula 1 season. And then, of course, you have a 50% race, which is the same as what pretty much all leagues run in today. So it's going to probably last in total about an hour and a half, something around there, because the race is normally about 45 minutes. Qualifying is sometimes around that, if not a little bit more. In terms of, is it going to be Catalonia or Madrid? I'm sure it's going to be Catalonia, but don't quote me on that. It might be different. I'm sure if Luke's in the chat, he'll correct me. But yeah, I'm sure it's going to be Catalonia. I don't think Madrid will be that good for racing, at least from what we've seen so far in this game. So we'll have to wait and see. If it is Madrid, then if that's what PSG is doing, it's probably going to be Madrid. But of course, we'll wait and see. That's the one thing that I probably should have known before starting today. I did everything else apart from looking which Spain track it's going to be. But of course, you've done the odd race here in WR in the past, commentary-wise. So your first full season, surely this is going to be an exciting tenure for you as well.
It really, really will. Because I feel like with every season that goes by, it always just feels that little bit more exciting and feels that little bit more thrilling. Of course, every season there's high expectation. But it feels like it just gets more competitive with every campaign that goes. And that's once again the case. But as we mentioned earlier, I think very clearly we've got one driver to beat, and well, that's for the field to do. That is, of course, Otis Lawrence. You know, Sim Racing World Champion, the reigning, and then also same applies to WOR as well. And it was a very interesting campaign, as I mentioned, 59 drivers in total. There was a lot of attendance issues, as I mentioned, due to the days. We had to move around from Sunday to Thursday, and it was very chaotic. I mean, our champion in the end, Lawrence, missed 5 races in total, but still went on to be champion. So this season, what we've done is we, of course, are starting a bit more later on because the drivers have holidays and we don't want to, you know, be starting then because we'll have the same issue. So we've started a bit later, and it should mean that we can get a campaign where the drivers can do most races, if not all, and we can get a true representation in terms of a great championship before, of course, F1 Sim Racing hopefully stops by as well, right in next year.
Yes, certainly. Of course, this championship takes us up to Christmas pretty much on December the 16th,
Yep.
which I presume is nearly I think it's like a week and 2 days before Christmas. So, of course, lots of action until we get to the new year. Whether we continue on with another championship or not, of course, that's all to be decided after this season's been completed, because there's lots of rumours going around of when F1 sim racing is going to be starting, and you know, you can't really commit to a season if sim racing begins when we want to get started. So, of course, there's lots of behind-the-scenes stuff that has to go on there. But, of course, we do know we have a full season here up until the middle point of December. And, of course, in terms of the big hitters heading into this championship, it's going to be interesting because you've got a lot of the drivers that we expect to perform well, but you've got some newer drivers coming in who have also been doing very good in kind of the, I suppose you could call them the development tiers, your tier 2s and tier 3s. They're slowly making their way forward, and of course, in many races this season, I'm sure they're going to prove that they have a chance to fight for podiums and fight for wins. I think the one driver I'm talking about there is Angelo D'Ortenzio. Of course, completed a couple of races last season. I'm sure he had a really good result as well. I'm sure he had a podium in Mexico, and I'm sure that's not going to change. I'm sure he's going to be fighting for them many more this season. He just relies on a bit of confidence and just being able to push himself forward. And of course, full-time seat, he's going to get used to that one car for the season instead of swapping and changing cars. That's certainly going to help him. And we'll have to wait and see what he can manage to do over the season. Of course, you followed him a lot over in PSGL in the F2 tier where he had a very dominant season. Certainly a driver with quite a potential for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of potential, especially over one lap, I've noticed. He's just absolutely remarkable. We literally get to points where he's a driver who can put it on pole 7 times in a row. He quite literally is that ridiculous when it comes to one lap. And then when it comes to the races, he's also consistent. He can always also find his way to remain, if it's not even P1, maybe just somewhere around the higher spots, which in the end does win a driver the championship as well. So he's definitely one to keep an eye on, and that's the great thing. It is great to be able to go racing here at WR and get to see some of these upcoming talents basically here first before F1 Sim Racing. A lot of drivers typically can't get straight to that due to age, but it's great that talents like Otis Lawrence in the past have been able to come here and establish themselves and really go into F1 Sim Racing as this established force, really.
Certainly, as we can finally say we're on track for Season 24 of PC Tier 1. And we have, of course, a 3-part qualifying. Now, the one thing you might be sitting here and thinking is, well, why have we not got the teams? Where are the teams' badges? Well, that's because we have the F1 World Car for qualifying. We'll then switch to the main cars for the race, which means, we've got a job of trying to figure out who's going to be who when they head their way out onto the track. We have got drivers starting to get ready to head out onto circuit for the opening laps this season, and I'd imagine, as always, we're probably going to see intermediate tyres. There we are, Joris Krozen, first out on track with the Inters.
Absolutely. Let's continue the traditions then for another season as Season 24 gets underway, and we get the drivers making their way out around this Abu Dhabi circuit, getting rid of the brake meter boards as well. As per normal, we're doing it all to kickstart this season as we make our way through with Krozen, who's been another driver who is always amazing to watch. Of course, when it comes to F1 sim racing, I always think back to that Brazil qualifying session where he put it on pole only for a few seconds, and then Ron Ha took it straight away. That was an absolutely incredible qualifying, one of the best I've seen by this field. That was, of course, in the F1 Sim Racing World Championship. Let's create some of those memories here in WOR, and the field then will get themselves all set and ready. 18 minutes to, 18 minutes to try and set some lap times. Of course, we'll be losing the bottom 6 in this session. So if you're some of the higher guys, you're just basically trying to set a good enough lap to make it through, and then we'll do the battle for pole position later on. Q1, Q2, and Q3, of course.
Certainly, of course. We always get a very exciting ending to the first Q1 of the season because you never really know who's where on pace. I mean, a lot of these drivers tend to be, be quite pally, out off track, and, a lot of them talk to each other all the time. But the one thing they won't do is tell each other their personal bests and tell them where they've got pace and, some of the strategies that they're going for. That's the one thing that they won't say. So heading into this, it will be a little bit of an unknown of, well, who are we going to see dropping out in Q1 and who are we going to see fighting for pole in Q3. And you can see there, Keane going up, helping out the whole lobby. You might be saying, well, why is he crashing into the brake marker boards down to turn 1? Well, that's because, as sim racers do, they want to utilise every single piece of the track possible, and the marker boards get in the way. So someone will go out, destroy them, and then everybody can go flat out and look to set some qualifying lap time. So Keane there doing the due diligence for everybody in the lobby, and then I'd imagine that it won't be too long until we see some cars out on the intermediate onto the soft tyres. Of course, we've got Pedreño also out on a set of the Inters. Of course, another driver that I'm quite excited to see this season, of course, in the past, is one of those where on some races he's brilliant and he's fighting for podiums, he's right up there. Then others he kind of struggles to kind of get off the ground running. So I'm hoping this season is a chance for Ruben to prove, well, he can consistently be good and it's not just the odd appearance here and there.
Absolutely. Ninth when it came to the end of the Sim Racing World Championship a couple of months ago. So that would have definitely given him quite a bit of confidence heading into this new game. Quite a few third places for him when it came to that championship. As we take a look at Jan Halliday, who in that Sim Racing World Championship was able to make a couple of appearances as well, just a few. Was able to grab 2 points by the end of it. But this is now another chance for him to try and, prepare for the next championship as well. This is what the drivers are all going to be very much doing at this stage. Of course, when they come into a race, you all just want to win it. But of course, it also does act as prep. It also helps with that element, and it also will just allow the drivers to get up to speed by the time the next Sim Racing Championship does come around. But for us, we get to enjoy a competitive championship, and we get to really see who's looking good and who possibly isn't at this early part of the game.
Certainly. As our first lap time of F1 26, it's going to be from Luca Rapassa, a 126.732. Quite far away from what we're actually going to see when we head onto the soft tyres. But Luca, also with a little bit of stream time, I'm wondering why he's wagging the tyres like that. I don't know. Showing off maybe. He'll head back into the pit lane and I'd imagine get himself onto a set of the soft tyres. And they were showing off by trying to drift out of the chicane. So we're going to go off Luca now. He's had his air time. And Jan Halliday will head his way back into the pit lane as well. And then, of course, get himself strapped onto a set of the soft tyres too. But, of course, looking at the grid as well, one name, Tung Tung Fasur. Now, I'd imagine I know exactly who that is, and that's Ismail Fassi. Yeah. Changed his name to something which I'd expect a 10-year-old to change it to. But I'm sure we've seen Ismail change his name to numerous things in the past. So, if I'm honest, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. I also saw Freddie Rasmussen had another name earlier, but not the case right now. He's back to his normal name, so it's Fassi left with those shenanigans for the moment when it comes to this round. Rapassa makes his way back into the pit lane, of course off those intermediates. And then we can get the proper session underway. But no, it's great to see the drivers all just making their way out and getting ourselves started for this brand new season. And some incredible circuits coming your way, as we mentioned earlier. And it all gets started at Abu Dhabi, a circuit typically where we end the season. But we are going to be kick-starting our campaign here. And, well, let's see who's going to be able to get a good start, first of all, in this Q1 session. Because sometimes you can get shocks. And as we are heading into this for the first time, is the first round, it just means that you just don't know who's going to be where. So it's always fascinating when we do get the clock down to 0, and then we get 6 drivers eliminated, and that will continue into Q2, and then of course we'll get a battle for pole position come our way in Q3.
Certainly, as everybody's back in the pit lane, they'll be getting themselves strapped onto a set of soft tyres, and then we will get our first laps underway for this season. Of course, looking over at the live chat, hello everybody, welcome in once again. Of course, Christian Block, up the blues, of course, up the blues, Christian. Lovely to hear you say that. Welcome in Victoria, evening as always. Din, no, I'm not going to say what you've asked me to because I know exactly what that means. Dan Field, oh my, absolute legend of the commentary box here in WOR, of course, parted ways with us this season off onto new pastures. So, of course, a big hello to Dan. Definitely wouldn't have a broadcast like what we have today without him, that's for sure. And then we have Chris saying, come on, Danny. Yes, Danny is back once again this season. So, alright, mate, good thing is everybody's back. Everybody in the chat saying hello, which is what we always love to see. And once we get towards Q2 and Q3, when we ask for pole position, we might have to ask them a few times because sometimes everyone answers. Other times we have to get it out to them a few times before people decide to actually comment.
I know, absolutely. Absolutely. Luca Rapassa's back out on circuit. I guess he wants more camera time. So he's decided to make his way into P1. There we go. He can get his camera time.
Man for the camera.
Yes, absolutely. Only driving with their lap time, of course, on those intermediate compounder tyres earlier on. But now we are going to get some proper laps on the softs. And it'll be fascinating to see how he gets on.
Indeed, as we already have one retirement. Fabrizio Donoso is going to be starting from the back for this one. That's interesting for the first race of the season, opting to go from the back. Either that, or I know a cheeky little tactic that he might be doing with the telemetry by looking at other drivers on their laps. Wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. I'm sure somebody's going to try and do that to watch what drivers are doing battery-wise. Luca's going to be out. There's going to be a secondary driver following. Now, I don't know who it is because many of them have black markers. So we're going to have to try and figure out who it is. When we see them actually come out, is it going to be Otis? It will be Otis Lawrence, of course, your current champion, both in WOR and also in F1 sim racing. Of course, also took a win last night in PSGL. You'd imagine, Omi, is going 2 in 2 here, isn't he?
He really, really is. He's got the momentum, and there was a race yesterday where he very much... it felt like he had control. He lost the lead for a couple of laps, got it back in yesterday's race. So it was very, very impressive. And it just felt like he didn't need to be leading all the way through, but he knew that he could get himself to the front. He could go into the last lap with the gap being 5/10, but still, through these straights, maintain it and bring it home. And that was exactly the case. Whether that is how today is going to play out, we will wait and see. But definitely, he is the one to keep an eye on. He's the one to try and beat, as we've been mentioning all broadcast so far, and that's the task for the other 21 drivers in the field. And here is Jarno Opmeer out on the circuit as well. Of course, if he is able to get himself to a race win today, he will equal the all-time win record, which currently belongs to Thomas Ronha of 13. But after yesterday's race, lots of work for Opmeer to do. He's on 12 wins as things stand, so very close. And then, of course, you've also got Longe on 11, so that all-time win record can very much change hands, I think, across this season.
Certainly, as everybody's out on their laps here. I think Luca Rapassa is on a lap now, so we'll keep an eye. No, he's lifted off, so he's either invalidated that last run or he's gone for a double out lap. So we'll keep an eye on Rapassa and see what he's going to do. But are going to have our first competitive lap of the season. It's going to be Otis Lawrence heading down to turn 1 in the black and blue car, which of course represents his Alpine, which he'll be racing in this season alongside Danny Berejnea, who I believe is one of the cars actually right behind him at the moment, also starting his lap. So let's keep an eye on Otis here, heading down to turn 5, a heavy braking zone, get the car turned in nicely, a slight lock up there for Lawrence, but he carries the speed through, and now we can, of course, head his way down towards turn 6 and 7. And this is going to get weird, because normally I'm saying, oh, and they've opened the DRS. That doesn't exist anymore. It's the overtake mode and the boost mode that the drivers are going to be utilising down that back straight in towards the chicane, which, of course, whenever I've driven around Abu Dhabi, I can never get that chicane right. It's so hard to master. But a great jump from Lawrence on this opening lap as he makes his way up towards turn 9 and 10 on this occasion, Omi. Looking decent from the current champion.
Looking decent, looking solid, looking like the type of lap that you'd expect coming in this Q1 session as well. Nothing extreme, nothing that is right now completely out of the blue. We'll get to that in Q3, but for the moment he's just trying to set a representative time, which is of course within the white lines. That is going to be so important. 6 minutes to go, and it is time to get some lap times on the board round the final corner, and it is going to be a 1 minute 21.639.
Indeed, as we do see Tamas Gal there just popping in behind in second place, and then Keane Godendorp about 100th away from Gal. Barry Burman there 2/10 off in 5th place as Alfie Butcher jumps up to the top 2. A nice lap from him to open up the session. Just looking for drivers coming through to complete laps. We've got Istvan Puka here, jumps up into the top 6 just behind Danny Barishnays. Thomas Ronhart jumps up into the top 2. A good lap from him. Then we have Joris Krozen here. Where can he manage? Only goes 12 fastest, just ahead. So just behind of Josh Idowu. Luca Rapassa still without a lap time on the board, but I think this could be a representative time from him as Freddie Rasmussen jumps up to the top 3. Definitely where we expect to see the Red Bull man. Then we see there Jan Otmir just inside the top 10, currently ahead of Ishmael Fassi. Luca Rapassa can jump into the top 14. A couple of drivers just yet to set lap times here in this session as Barishne goes up to the top 7. What can Halliday do in the Aston Martin? He goes up into the top 5. A nice start from him. And then the final car to cross the line will be Ulash Azildrim. He jumps up into the top 10 and knocks Julian Klaffenbach out of it. A good start from the drivers here. But of course it's Otis Lawrence ahead of Ronhart and Rasmussen in 3rd. I wouldn't say, Omi, that's the most surprising top 3 at all.
Yeah, we've not got to shock territory yet, let's just say. It's very much the kind of order that you'd predict and expect from some of our drivers that are running higher up after what we saw in yesterday's race. And of course, the drivers all just very much going to be carrying that momentum forward now. And they've of course had a go at this already, and now they get to try and utilize it here in WOR. In the past around Abu Dhabi, Fassi's won here, so is Ronhar. Ronhar's won here twice, Longue's won, and then we've had other drivers like Luke Smith, who's taken the checkered flag, not with us of course, but Pookie, also another one of those that have won around this circuit. So Ronhar the only double winner here. Let's see whether he can try and make it 3 by the end of the evening, but as we've mentioned, Otis Lawrence is going to have something to say about that as we take a look at Angelo Di Ortenzio, one of the promising talents that we were mentioning that everyone should be keeping their eye on right now and also for the future as well.
Certainly, and another driver who I'm excited to see this season, Ulash Azildrim, jumps himself up into the top 9 at the moment for the V-Carb team. Of course, it's him and Tom Manley this season. Tom Manley, disappointing start for him, down in 20th after the opening runs. I'd expect to see him quite a lot higher than that. But I think Ulash Azildrim is a driver, if he stays with us for the full season, somebody that can definitely be fighting right up there. Of course, in the past 4 seasons, he's only taken part in 6 races. So we'll see what Ulash can do this season. Whether he stays or whether he kind of goes off, we'll have to wait and see. As we do have some retirements at the end of Q1. We have Lawrence and Butcher, who will depart early. Of course, they don't need to waste a new set of tyres. They believe they're safe and through to Q2. Of course, at the moment, the cut-off point is a 1:21.890. And that's only a 10th away from where Butcher is, so they must be very confident that that's going to see them through. Tamas Gal as well, retiring. He's just over a 10th and a half away in P6. He thinks he's safe. And Danny Berishne, who's only 2 positions below Tamas Gal, doesn't think he is. So lots of drivers, and I presume this is also down to the engineers, having different opinions of, well, what's going to get them through to Q2 here.
Yeah, some choosing a bit more of the sensible approach of staying out like Beresne, but then of course some of the higher top drivers at the moment in this session choosing along with their engineers that of course, you know, we should hopefully be safe and we should be through, so there's no point going out once again. But of course everyone below that is going to be making their way out because they have something to fight for and they want to try and keep themselves in this qualifying session. 2 minutes to go and we're about to get the field pushing their way through, and let's see whether we're going to start off the season with a shock or is it going to be as expected? It's WOR, so typically it's more of the shock that we'll get at some point, but we're about to see them all attack. Fab Donoso, of course, Fabrizio Donoso, already confirmed to be out because he retired, so we'll have 5 that are about to do battle.
Certainly, and looking at how strong the grid is, I think there's definitely going to be at least one shock exit. There always is when the grid is so tight, because sometimes you can have, like, in the past you've had like top 10 being within a tenth of a second, then you've had like 11th down to 20th being within a tenth of a second as well. So it's always so close here when it comes to the end of Q1. Of course, it gets the same when it comes to the end of Q2, when you've got even a smaller pool of faster drivers. You never really know who's going to make it through, and one mistake can easily cost you a way through into that next qualifying session, homies. We do have Denny Berger, the first car out on track, heading his way down to turn 5. You'd imagine he's probably going to be safe, because there's probably time for him to find, and either way he's still quite far away from where Rapassa is at the moment. But let's see what Berger can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's just one of those drivers, along with their engineer, who've picked the option of let's just try be safe. Let's just try and absolutely 100% guarantee that we are going to be getting through, even though that is most likely going to be the case regardless. But through 6, through 7, and then stands on the power, fighting away with the car, and it means he's all over the curb as now he points his car towards turn number 9, a fast flowing complex of corners. And he finds himself down at the moment. So that little wiggle that he had as he tried to stand on the power definitely having an effect. So he's gone out there, not finding the improvement as things stand. He shouldn't really have to. He most likely will be safe regardless. But a bit of a scruffy lap out here, and it's invalidated as well. So that'll be the end of that.
Indeed, and next we have Keane Godendorp here, who currently sits P7. So you'd imagine he's also one of those that is most likely safe in this session as he makes his way down in towards the final couple of corners. Of course, Berger will be 8th at best here in Q1, but of course once we head to Q2 it doesn't matter where he finished here, because it's a clean slate and he can go once again. Let's see what the young Red Bull driver can do. Of course, in the Cadillac here this season, makes his way to the final corner, up to the line, goes 4th fastest. A nice lap time there from Keane Godendorp. Next we have Ismail Fassi, up by only a bit of time in that middle sector. He's got a lot to find in the final, up to the line. He goes up into the top 8. A nice improvement from him. Then we have a couple more to come through. Tom Manley, he's out of Q1. Can't improve, out of the top 19. And he will stay out of this session. Luca Rapassa also won't improve. He will be out as well in 17th. The same goes for Joris Kroos, and another shock, as he's normally very quick in qualifying, as Gabor Chontos doesn't make it through. He's 13 thousandths away from Josh Ido, who now also gets knocked out of qualifying. Yanawatmi goes up into the top 7. And will Barry Burman survive? It's going to be close. I think he has done, because Josh Ido has gone back into the pit lane. And that was a very, very quick end into Q1 there. And Barry Burman there, barely surviving by only 20 thousandths of a second. But the big two for me there, it's Joris Kroos and Tom Manley.
Absolutely. And that is very much your surprise, leaving this part of qualifying, Q1. And they will not, of course, be progressing. Barry Burman just about makes his way by. But close margins nearer to the front. But unfortunately, a shame about the 6 that are eliminated. We'll see them later on for the race.
Certainly. So, of course, it was Otis Lawrence quickest in that opening qualifying session, ahead of Thomas Reinhardt and Freddie Rasmussen. Keane Godendorp was 4th ahead of Alfie Butcher, and it was Jan Halliday, Yanawatmi, who found improvements ahead of Pookie, Gal and Fassi, the top 10. Then we had Azildrim, Petrenio, Klaffenbach, Bereshne, Dortenzio and Burman making it through. Then we did lose Idowu, Chontos, Rapassa, Kroos and Manley, and Fabrizio Donoso, who of course decided not to take part in qualifying. So there we go. Interesting scenes at the start of Q2 as we see Idowu, Kroos and Manley out of that opening qualifying session. But of course, the main thing I always say, when you see big names get dropped out, it gives some of those that don't normally make it through to Q2 that opportunity to maybe fight for a top 10 spot.
Absolutely. It really, really does. And it very much is quite obvious like that, where, you know, if you have a driver that you expect to be there and they're not, it will open the door for someone else. And then it's great to see them get that opportunity to try and also contend and try and fight. It gets even narrower now in this session as we enter Q2, where you can get even some more of the drivers who you typically expect nearer to the front most days to also be eliminated as well. So this is the session where the drivers very much need to be on it. This is the type of session where even if you're nearer to the front, you may not risk it because the improvement in such a close field can be so high. So you really want to just try and ensure that you get through to the final part of qualifying in Q3. But for now, we've got the 16 making their way by as they clean up the road a little bit and they all rush their way onto the circuit and ready for some lap times.
Certainly, as we have the cars out on track, just following Alfie Butcher here as he makes his way down towards turn 6, as everybody is going through destroying those brake marker boards so they can utilise every piece of the track as possible. Of course, another driver that I think did a great job there in Q1 was Angelo D'Ortenzio, survived by a couple of positions there. Of course, ahead of his teammate, Barry Burmond. Well, I suppose it is technically teammate. Of course, they're in different cars, but both part of Ferrari, so a great start to Tier 1 life for D'Ortenzio. I think Keen Godendorp as well had a really strong lap there to end off Q1 with a lap time putting him 4th. He was 7th before. So 2 really good competitive laps there from the young Red Bull driver. And then looking through as well, I think it was a positive start for Uppbeat, who of course we know in PSGL didn't quite have the start he would have wanted, but at the end of Q1 managed to get himself up into the top 10 as we see everybody rather close here heading into the final corner, Omi. This is going to be interesting.
It is. It very much is. I mean, if it was in Abu Dhabi, I'd probably say we're going to get rain, everyone, at the moment in time. But yes, they're very much rushing, aren't they, through that final corner? They're all backing up a lot, and they're just trying to get a lap time on underway very, very quickly. We're on board with Uppbeat as he makes his way through the opening few turns, climbs, of course, up, and then gets ready to dip down towards turn number 5. And we get an opening sector time at 16.9 for him so far, as he looks to try and have a better day than he did yesterday when it came to PSGL. Not very pleased with the game one day ago was Uppbeat, so let's hope he has a bit of a better experience here today and can at least be involved in the fighting nearer to the front.
Certainly, as we've got Julian Klaffenbach right behind the back of another car as well, making his way into the chicane. Very odd strategy for everybody just to follow each other through on this one. I don't know what the meaning behind this is, but I'm sure we never saw this at the start of the game cycle. But everybody going out early and looking to get some quick lap times in at the start of the Q2 session. We've got a few drivers that are a little bit further back away from the train. Barry Burmond is one of them. He's got a nice bit of clean air in front of him and hasn't got to worry about a car right behind him as well as he makes his way through turn 9. But looking through at the first lap times to be set, they'll all come through. Istvan Pukki will be the first. He goes up to P101 22.142 as Tamas Gale will head back into the pit lane. He's not going to set a lap time this time around. Lawrence goes quickest, ahead of Uppbeat in second as Unash Azildrim jumps up into the top 3. What about Ismail Fassi in the Ferrari? He goes up into the top 9, around 6 tenths away from the time of Otis Lawrence. Of course, many of those there, being on a set of the used soft tyres because there's no point burning through every soft tyre early, especially when this run, it's good for a banker, but it's not going to be the lap time you're going to have at the end of the session, so there's no point burning a new tyre now when you'd rather have it to set your quickest lap time later on with, of course, that track evolution. Yeah,
absolutely. So if this is your lap time that remains at the end, you're probably heading out of qualifying pretty much. We've got the F1 wildcards for this qualifying session only. Do not worry, we'll have our normal liveries come the actual race. That'll be what we do across this season. So in qualifying, we'll run with these cars, and then it'll all be nice and pretty come our 29 lap race later on as well. Of course, just to make sure that we avoid any of the pit stop issues in the races. Drivers would not know who is their teammate.
Certainly not. So that can cause issues in quali when people are heading in and heading out, so they don't end up losing time. It's always a bit of a guess of who your teammate is at the start of the session, as everybody's going to make their way back into the pit lane. A big train of drivers are going to head their way back in and, of course, complete the first laps of the session. A good lap as well from Halliday. Jumps up into the top 3 as well. So a really nice start for him in the Aston Martin. Of course, had a couple of successful races in the F1 Sim Racing Championship and also got a podium last time out in PSGL here at Abu Dhabi. So excited to see what he can do as well tonight. I'm sure he's going to once more be running right up at the top of the field. As we are going to see everybody head back in, Omi. They'll all jump onto a new set of tyres, I'd imagine, and then go out again for another lap here in Q2. So you've probably got 2 laps left here. I think if you set a good enough lap time in the next part of Q2, you can probably afford to retire and go through to Q3. But if you don't set a lap time that's good enough to stay through, it's going to be another soft tyre used at the end of the session. So I think the main thing here for drivers is trying to get the quickest lap time as early as possible so they don't have to go out again and use another set of tyres.
Yeah, definitely isn't ideal, but that's what the drivers and engineers will be assessing later on. If they can avoid the issue overall right now, then that would also be great by getting some proper good laps at the moment. So far, Otis Lawrence continues his form. Very much still P1, whatever circumstance it might be. He is still running at the front. We'll see whether that will continue. The likelihood so far is he is going to be in those top positions, but can anyone try and displace him when it comes to that Q3 session later on? And then, of course, the race that will follow. We may have something expected, but typically in WR, because the margins are so close, things can go a little bit wild very quickly, especially come that race. So there's no guarantee of how we are going to be finishing later on. So you'll have to stick with us all the way through, and then we'll find ourselves crowning our first winner and our podium sitters, leaving round 1 of the season.
Certainly, as everybody's back out, apart from his little dream, but he's just exited the pit lane now, so everybody's out for their next laps in this session, and this time they are a lot close. They're a lot further away from each other than they were before. So maybe it was just the fact that everybody wanted to get out quickly to get that first lap done in Q2, so they can rush back round to the pit lane and then, of course, get going again for that second stint here in this qualifying session. As we'll see, the first car to come through and start a lap is going to be Danny Berejnay. So he'll be first. He's 14th at the moment. Hasn't got a lap time on the board. So we'll have to wait and see what he can do on this one. Of course, had a decent Q1 session. Got himself comfortably through into Q2. Of course, just had that invalidated lap time at the end. Let's see what he can do here at the start of this one. And for him, hopefully, he can get a decent time on the board and not put himself in a situation where he's got to go out again later on and potentially have a risk of invalidating once again.
Yeah, you don't want that, because even if a driver then does go out on a new set later on, right at the end of the session, there's no guarantee that it'll all be clean, it'll all be nice, because at that point of the session, you're going to be pushing and you know that you are at risk, so it counts and it's very important. So they will be pushing and dancing all the way to the edge of this Yas Marina circuit, where a chance of an invalidation can come in as well. And even though these are on the game, the most they are, of course, the drivers least likely to make a mistake. It typically can also come when the pressure is very, very high, as they make their way now through Danny Berejnay through the hotel section and towards the end of the lap. The final few turns, and then we can get some proper times on the board. It's been a bit scruffy as he's made his way through, but let's see what the overall time is. And he is going to find himself second at the moment, 1 minute 21.799.
Indeed, and looking for the next car to come through. I think it might be Keen Gunendorp. It is. He will not settle that time on that occasion, so that must have been invalidated for him. But we're trying to find another driver coming through. We'll go with Angelo D'Ortenzio here as he makes his way through into the final corners, as Tamas Gal goes quickest at 121.544, just ahead of Isman Pukki, who jumps himself up into the top 2, and Angelo D'Ortenzio gets himself just ahead of Danny Berejnay with a 121.695, a nice lap by the young Italian, as he actually has a quicker lap time than Ismail Fassi. As we'll see what Barry Burman can do as well, as he's making his way through into the final corner. Klaffenbach jumps up into the top 4. Very nice for him in the Haas car. And Barry Burman will jump up to P2 and about half a tenth away from Tamas Gal, who's just ahead of Thomas Ronahar as he crosses the line in second place. But that is a superb lap time by Tamas Gal, a tenth ahead of 5th place and quite far ahead of the likes of Barry Burman, Pukki, Rasmussen, who are drivers we expect to see right up there as well.
Yeah, very much looking interesting so far this session. So a great effort there by Gal at the front of the field at the moment. Whether that will remain the case, we'll find out in about 5 minutes' time. But, you know, his goal at the moment is mostly just going to be getting through and making his way into Q3. And then they'll worry about those higher top 10 positions when it comes to Q3 later on, as we check in with Jan Halliday. So far a set, a 1 minute 21.883, so he'll need to go a little bit more quicker if he wants to have a chance of improving further in this session. But another interesting run done, and it'll be fascinating to see what stocks we're going to get next.
Certainly, as Alfie Butcher is out very early in this session for his final lap. Well, I'd imagine it's his final lap in Q2, unless he's going to go for a double 8 lap, I'm not sure, but very early for Alfie Butcher to be out, of course, in McLaren this season, racing in a black car for qualifying, and then, of course, will be in his usual McLaren as we head our way into the race. And then we have everybody else also just heading back into the pit lane. We have another car going out onto track, and that will be Jarno Uppmeyer. So he's also going out early. He didn't set a lap time on that new set that he had just. I think he must have been validated because he was still in the 121.8, but yet again, a nervy moment here for Jarno Uppmeyer. He's in 12th, he's over a 10th away from the top 10 of drivers that will also improve. So you'd imagine here, Omi, he needs at least 3/10 to be comfortably safe into Q3.
Yeah, that's what he'll be looking for, and we'll keep an eye on that delta when he pushes on to see whether that will become a reality and whether that will be true, or he'll be finding himself out. And that would be a disaster for him after what happened yesterday, because, you know, typically you'd expect him to be able to do some magic in the race. But if he's already struggling, it's not the most ideal situation if he finds himself out in Q2. He'll want to get to Q3 to at least keep himself in the mix. And for now, we can just wait and see what this next lap is going to bring, as Alfie Butcher also makes his way through. That's wide through turn number 1. And yeah, not really doing anything through there.
Yes, another out lap here for Alfie Butcher. I'd imagine that was tactical, going very wide at turn 1, because I don't think that's a normal line that he would be taking through there, that's for sure. But we see Barry Burman retire on his 121.605. He thinks that's safe through to Q3. But Tamas Gal is going again, and so is Thomas Ronhaar. So are they not confident of the lap times, and has Barry Burma maybe jumped the gun a little bit, or are they just a little bit too overcautious of what's going to see them through to Q3? Because Isran Pookie is also decided to call it quits on his 121.608. He's in P4, so 7 cars go quicker than that, and that would see him out as well of Q2. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'd imagine either way, Omi, they'll be risking staying in either way. I'm sure they know that anyway, don't they? You're probably going to end up maybe P7, P8 by the end of this. And, of course, if it goes terribly wrong, could end up seeing them outside of that top 10.
Yeah, that's the extreme scenario. It's risk versus reward, basically, that they're balancing out at the moment. The engineers and the drivers. So, you know, very clearly they've decided that we'll take this final run out. We'll hope we'll get through, and that should hopefully be the case for them. But we'll wait and see in about a minute's time. We'll see what the rest of the field are able to do in terms of improvements. You're taking a look at Jan Halliday, 13th at the moment. That is exactly what he is going to be chasing. And, of course, we got to see him for a few rounds in the F1 Sim Racing World Championship. Round 2, Round 5, Round 7, and the 11th round as well of the 2026 season. But we get to see him here in WOR and see what he's going to be able to do. Our lobby host as well. He's a reserve, but he'll get preference over all the other reserve drivers purely because he is our lobby host.
Indeed, as everybody now will be looking to start their final laps here of Q2, as we'll have a look here at Tamas Gal, who's quickest so far in this session with a 121.544 ahead of Thomas Ronhaar in second place. He'll be looking to improve. I'd imagine he can find time, but he's certainly safe, is Tamas Gal. So it's a lap where he's not got any pressure on him. He can just go full flow and try and do something as he makes his way through and towards the final parts of the first set. So looking for drivers that are actually at the end of a lap. I think Alfie Butcher might be one of them, just making his way through in towards turn 9 as Danny Bergevin jumps up to the top 3, mate.
Absolutely. So Beresnay goes up to third position. We're seeing the final few corners now for Kian as he looks to try and make his way by. No time on the board as of yet. He's kept it within the white lines. He's through the final turn now, and we are going to see an improvement to fourth. So that is going to be to safety for him. Round the final corner now for Alfie Butcher. He goes fastest of all, so he'll easily be through. Lawrence joins him in second place as things stand. Tamascal is already improving, but he's already in those higher positions, so he's looking good. This is just to go even quicker, frankly, and he will go even quicker. It'll be a 1 minute 24.452. Freddie Rasmussen is at risk. He's currently down in 9th position. Keep an eye on Barry and Pookie as well right now, because they are finding themselves dropping down. Rasmussen will improve his position. Here's Opmir, 3 times a champion in WOR, and he won't be able to make his way through. Fassi now through the final corner, currently 14th, finds the time up to 6th position. Pookie is now at risk. Can Uzildirim, a winner of course in the F1 Sim Racing World Championship, get his way through? He can, and he gets up to 4th. Angelo Diotensio is currently down through Sector 2. When he completes Sector 3, when we get a lap time on the board, he'll find himself out as well. Pedrino's not pushing on, and both Burmond and Pookie, who took the risk to stay in, they are going to be out, along with Klaffenbach, Opmir, Diotensio, and over the line, very slowly, will come Pedrino to be in 16.
And there we are, once again, a poor qualifying session from Jarno Opmeer. We'll end that in P12, and certainly not going to set him up with confidence. Sorry, P14, not going to set him up with confidence heading through into the race after this Q3 session. But the drivers that have made their way through, it will be Tamas Gal, quickest of the lots, ahead of Alfie Butcher in second. Third was Freddie Rasmussen. Fourth, Ulash Azildrim ahead of Otis Lawrence, running off your top 5. Then we had Thomas Ronhar ahead of Ishmael Fassi, Jan Halliday, Danny Berishney, and Kian Godendup, your top 10. We did lose Barry Burmond, the big shock there, along with Istvan Pookie, Julian Klaffenbach, Jarno Opmeer, Angelo D'Ortenzio, and Ruben Pedreño. I think the 2 names there are definitely Burmond and Opmeer. 2 of those that, at least with Burmond, you're looking at him for going for pole position. I wouldn't say that's the case with Opmeer that often, but he's always in and around the top 5. Very rare to see him as well drop his way out of Q2. But we're heading to Q3 here, Omi. A couple of drivers that we're going to see fighting for pole for sure, but then a couple of outsiders who maybe have their opportunity to do something. Lots of Halliday and Ulash Zildream. You've got Gal as well. And then, of course, for me, the main one making his way through, Kian Godendup. Really good performance from him.
Absolutely. Well, here we go then. Q3 gets underway. 10 drivers all battling for that pole position. And so far, across this game, in the race that we had yesterday, and of course the form that we left off, the first part of the game of F1 25, of course, because this is the DLC, it very much has been Otis Lawrence that you'd keep your eye on to be at the front. But now we ask the question, can anyone try to displace him? Looked a bit more closer in Q2, but can anyone try and find the time in this Q3 session when it matters and when it counts, as he proved yesterday, as I think we got the safety car driving around. I did see it leaving the pit lane, and we've got the safety car making its way by. I mean, we can't spectate it directly, or I would commentate on its lap. We can see on board. There we go. Hello, Batman Lander, says Jan Halliday.
Oh, dear me. There's no session where the safety car doesn't appear at one point for us. It always has to make an appearance. Dear me. Oh, as that was a jump over the curb, and nearly ended Jan Halliday's qualifying session, because that nearly ended up with him in the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a little bit more of a scare that you probably wouldn't expect on an outlap, but he is out there, and he's making his way by with about 10 minutes and 30 seconds. The only driver to be out there at this moment in time, because they do get more time than they actually need, the drivers, and it's mostly the end of the session where you'd want to improve, where the circuit's of course at its best. That's going to be your best chance to try and take that pole position session, that pole position time.
Of course, Ishmael Fassi has left the session, so being as it's qualifying, it's not the end of the world. He should be able to join back hopefully quite quickly, as Jan Halliday will enter back into the pit lane. Well, now we're heading to Q3. The first laps of qualifying should be underway shortly. I'd imagine maybe around the 8-minute mark we should see everybody out on track and setting their first laps. And I'm not going to be nice and let everybody guess then, because it's always easy to guess who's going to go for pole when you've got the first lap times on the board. So I'm going to ask the question now to everybody in the live chat, to everybody watching in. Who do you think is going to go for pole position for the first round of Season 24. Get your predictions in the live chats of who you think will take pole position. And Omi, the question to you as well. Who do you think is going to take pole here tonight?
Oh, okay. Here we go. I thought I'd avoided it just about, but no. I'd say okay. I'd say looking at the form so far, if I wanted to be sensible, it's most likely going to be Otis Lawrence. But as so far as proven, other drivers can be up there. Ron has looked good so far. Fassi, if he can get back in, he goes well around here. Of course, I mean, you know, if we look at WR history as a whole, he goes very well around here. And then, of course, the F1 Sim Racing World Championship that we just had, won the final race, won 3 races in a row to, well, fall by just 2 points in terms of that championship as more of our contenders make their way out onto the circuit. So, I've given you a lot of words there, I've given you a lot of analysis, but simple one word would be Lawrence, I'd say.
Indeed, as we've seen a lot of people in the chat, we've got Goats Half a Pole, says Jason. Oh, how I do not miss Jason and Jordan in the chat. Every season, they're in there arguing about Ron Harren's up me up. They're back again. Lovely to see those two chaps in the live chats. Phoenix says Tamas Gal for pole. We've got Gamal Chontos as a guest. Well, unfortunately, Jaden, he was knocked out in Q1. Simon says Otis. Hard says Lawrence. Sean says Freddie. We've got Busher or Lawrence pole from Alex. And is Kate Binface the other commentator? Now, Omi, are you Kate Binface? Is the question we're being asked.
Sadly not. Sadly not at the moment. I hate to break your heart, but no. That isn't the case.
As Ibrahim says, let's go Fred. And then Souza says, Yano is winning. Ibrahim also says, Yano will make a comeback. Well, we all know Yano Opme very well, don't we? I mean, he's definitely a driver that will make a comeback if that opportunity is presented to him.
Absolutely. If he can get the race going his way, if he can get dialed in with the game, absolutely, he's going to have a great opportunity. We'll focus on that come the race, but, you know, he's always one that you cannot count out. And he's always one that you have to keep an eye on in that race. Because, you know, for about half the race, he probably wouldn't be on your radar. And then eventually, by the end, he'll creep up and he'll eventually be there.
Indeed. There's a couple more in the chat as well. We've got Caden Foster saying, hometown hero Butcher. Well, unless I'm wrong, I didn't know that Alfie Butcher was from the Middle East, but I think that's his way of saying that he predicts Alfie will go for pole today.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that the challenge is try and give us the most wildest way. Like just try and put the most wildest thing alongside who your prediction is. But yes, I mean, I'm happy. I'm happy if we're getting predictions. That's the good thing. Any way we get them, at least we are getting them.
Certainly. As the first lap's underway here, Otis Lawrence will be the first to put a time on the board. Up to the line for Otis Lawrence. It's a 121.482. A nice opening start to him. Danny Berejnate 3/10 away in the other Alpine as we have a couple more left to come through. I think the next one might be Alfie Butcher or Thomas Ronhar, but then we've got Tamas Galin behind them as Alfie Butcher goes quickest. A 121.457. Ahead of Otis Lawrence. Tamas Gal jumps up into the top 3. Keen Godin up there, up into the top 5. As we still have many cars to come across the line. We have Ismail Fassi, who's just started a lap. Thomas Ronhard jumps into P2, 100th ahead of Otis Lawrence. A few more left to come through to complete their laps. I think we got Freddie Rasmussen at the moment, so he'll be making his way down towards turn 12. Let's see what he can do in that Red Bull.
Absolutely. Let's see what he's got for us at this moment in time as we come through those final couple of corners, and then he'll point the car towards the final one, and then he'll get ready to come over the line in a few moments time, and then we can get an effort from him, and he goes fastest.
That is a lap and a half, a tenth and a half clear of everybody else. Freddie Rasmussen, a 121.311. A really competitive lap time from him, and that will be one to beat. I mean, in terms of pole position, I think we're going to be looking at the 121.2s. Rasmussen isn't far away from that already with a very low 121.3. So that is a positive start to Q3 here for Rasmussen. We've got Ismail Fassi as well. We'll have to see what he can set here in this session. Of course, the only Ferrari man through to Q3. Of course, we lost Barry Burman in Q2 and then also Angelo D'Ortenzio as well. So we'll have to see what Fassi can do here and maybe spark something up for the Scarlet Red, but no, he'll go back into the pit lane and will not set a lap time on that occasion. Of course, I suppose if he goes all the way around now, he's going to have to get back in, and it's going to be a bit of a rush getting him back out for his final lap of the session. As we did see as well, Ulash Azildrim, P7, but of course he's definitely on used tyres. I don't think that's the case for Freddie Rasmussen, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So he went straight up there, out of the blue, straight into that P1 spot, and now he's going to be looking to try and maintain that in the final run. Everyone's going to get a chance to improve, especially a circuit like Abu Dhabi. You know, most tracks, all tracks basically have track evolution, but especially I'd say Abu Dhabi is one of those circuits which can go faster and faster, and it's so important to deliver when the clock hits 0, and whoever it is by the end of it is going to need to literally be taking it over to the white lines. That's how close the margins are going to be for pole position, and it is still wide open as the first run has shown you, but we'll see how the order is going to change in the final runs very, very shortly. We're ticking down the final few minutes. If you didn't let us know a prediction earlier, of course you can still do so at the moment. You're a bit more educated now as we've had a few laps, but you can still let us know something in terms of a prediction.
Certainly, and of course, just looking back at last night's results as well over in PSGL, that lap time there from Rasmussen in his opening lap would have put him P2 on the grid. He would have only been about about 10,000th away from Otis Lawrence, who got pole with a 2.97. So, very positive signs here for Freddie Rasmussen, and I'd imagine, Omi, he can probably go a little bit quicker than that, as we do have the first car race on track, and it will be Danny Berejnay, of course, not setting a lap time yet on those new tyres in Q3. It's all down to him to do something now. And the issue you have when you do go out on a used set at the start of Q3 is that you give yourself a position where you've got nothing to fall back onto. If he doesn't improve now, he's probably going to start 10th place or 9th at best if, you know, Godendorp also does the same. Whereas Rasmussen, if he doesn't improve here, he's still probably got top 3 in the bag.
Yeah. That was the importance of that early lap, that, you know, he's still going to already have a great result in case that he doesn't improve, in case something does go wrong as well. And being quick straight away with those new tyres, definitely very much a nice approach to have, because at least then you've got something compared to a lot of the other drivers who, especially someone like Fassi, who of course disconnected as he had to restart the game due to some issues momentarily. You know, he's going to be banking completely on this final lap, and he'll be hoping and praying that it all goes nicely and all goes well as well, or he'll be at the back in 10th position as we watch the field make their way through on the outlaps at the moment and getting ready for that all-important push lap very shortly.
Indeed, as the first one to go out to set a lap time, we'll have to figure out who it will be. There's many cars with black dots. It will be Danny Berejnay, the driver that went out first. So we'll keep an eye here on Berejnay. 1 minute and 15 to go. So every lap now that the drivers start will be their one and only chance to go for pole position, Omi, as Danny Berejnay makes his way through turn 1 nicely. And these are normally the worst corners to go through, the opening corners where you've got the pressure on you. For many drivers have got this shaky legs, and you go out of track by an inch and that's it done. So you've got to push hard, but be very careful not to go outside those white lines.
Yeah, absolutely. You very much do as well. And that was very, very close for Perez. He arrived down towards turn number 5 with the safety car in the way there. But they'll make their way down towards turn 6, and he'll continue to push regardless. And he'll continue to try and go on the charge and go on the attack across the rest of this lap. Then you arrive at the back straight, and it's all about pointing the car towards turn number 9. You're taking the shortest route because thousands. It comes down to that here in WOR. He's up by about a 10th and very nearly a half as he makes his way through that long corner and then arrives towards this third and final sector of the lap.
A very nice opening sector there from Danny Berejnay. A middle sector as well. Of course, he's still got a couple corners to go before he can try and get himself up to the top spot here at the end of Q3. The timer hits 0. The checkered flag will come out. So this is everybody's final laps here in this third qualifying session. Berejnay, 8th at the moment, up to the line, goes up into the top 6, about a 10th away from the lap time of Freddie Rasmussen. Next to come across the line will be Ulash Azildrim. Can he improve from P8 up to the line? Goes second. A brilliant lap time by Ulash Azildrim. Then we have Keane Gerdendorp, who's up by a big chunk in that middle sector. He goes up into P2. A good lap by Keane Gerdendorp to displace Ulash Azildrim. Next we'll have Tamas Gal, who's 9th at the moment, but set a very good lap time in Q2. Can he try and do the same here in Q3? A couple corners to go as he makes his way out of the final corner, up to the line, and he can't. He stays down in P9. Next we have Otis Lawrence, the man to watch, up to the line. No! He's 4th. He can't quite do what he did yesterday and will be outside of the front row of the grid. He might even be below that as Alfie Butcher's next to head across the line to improve. He's 5th at the moment. He goes up onto the front row. A really good lap time from him, and Rasmussen has invalidated. It is Thomas Ronhaar who goes fastest up to the top of the times. He should be your man on pole. There's a couple cars left to set laps. Jan Halliday goes P5. Ishmael Fassi invalidates and he stays down in P10. But it's Thomas Ronhaar, was P2 yesterday and is on pole today. Superb lap time from Ronhaar. It's not going to be the .2 that we could have got, but we certainly got close to it.
Absolutely incredible. And that's what we were mentioning earlier, where the threats can come from absolutely everywhere. And it's Ronhaar next to Rasmussen, Butcher next to Gerdendorp, and then Halliday, 5th and 6th, is of course alongside Azildrim, row 3 for them. Lawrence in 7th, Berejnay 8th, Gal in 9th, and no time on the board even by the end for Fassi, and the issues definitely affecting him earlier on. When he came to the end of the session, he could not play a part in the running. A driver, of course, who goes so strongly around Abu Dhabi, so will have a lot of work to go, a lot of work to do.
Of course, and I believe we will have a quick restart as we need to get everybody into their proper cars. So hopefully it won't take too long before we get started for this race, but of course we just need to do a little bit of housekeeping and put everybody in the car they should be. Of course, I'd imagine it's something to do with potential unequalness between these cars. So everybody goes into an equal car of the F1 World car. Then, of course, heading into the race, they've all agreed to go to the standard car. So, of course, whichever one they're normally racing in for the season, which makes our job, Omi, a lot easier. As well, of course, have another look at the calendar of what we've got to expect for this season. Of course, it's going to be Abu Dhabi here today. I'm not here next week, but Omi certainly will be for round 2 at Saudi Arabia. That's going to be an interesting circuit, Omi, because we know that overtaking on this game has been difficult. Saving battery is going to be difficult, where as you go into a track where you need to use a lot of battery, it's very high speed, and in the past there's been a lot of overtaking, so this is going to be a bit of an unknown of what to expect from the Jeddah Corniche circuit.
Going to be quite a lot of fun in a week's time to see how that is all going to play out and who is going to be coming out on top. As you mentioned, so many places where the battery is going to matter. And then straight after that, Spa, lots of drivers on this grid also mentioning about how that could be quite chaotic and interesting as well. So the next 2 rounds are going to be very fascinating and very much are going to continue the dramaticness of this season, which of course we start here at Abu Dhabi right now. In a few moments' time, as the lobby restarts will all take place, as you mentioned. But quite a good calendar and quite a good round 2 for us in terms of if we want more chaos, more enjoyment and more fun leaving a Wednesday evening.
Certainly, as we are just waiting for everybody to join their way back into the session, we'll quickly jump over to the camera screen once more as I'm the first one in, luckily. Nobody else has joined in yet, so hopefully they all come flying through shortly. And then, of course, we can get set for racing action around Abu Dhabi. Of course, in terms of strategy, I think you're looking at most likely a medium hard around lap 11 to lap 13, lap 14, because we do know that the hards around here do go quite a far way. Those that go in the hard medium, I don't think there'll be many, but they'll, of course, be pitted a lot later on in this one. But, of course, Omi, Abu Dhabi's not known for overtaking. There's not that many opportunities, so I'd imagine realistically it's not worth it, really, is it, to go for that overcut and go long, because it's going to give you such hard work to do to fight your way back through the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when you do get those chances to overtake, you're very much in that pack where you're going to get lots of moments of brinkmanship. You're going to be going 3 wide. You're not going to be, you're not going to be in an ideal position, let's just say. So overall, you want to avoid that situation if you want to try and score maximum points, because it very much decreases the risk of, contact if you can run a bit more of a normal race nearer to the front of the field. So that's going to be very fascinating to keep an eye on coming our way very shortly, the strategy. But equally, someone maybe might try and go a little bit wild if they just really don't have the pace, if things just aren't working in their favour at all. But we'll keep an eye on that across the 29 laps.
Of course, and there's a couple of drivers who, of course, we lost early on in qualifying, the likes of Barry Burman, who didn't get through to
Yeah.
Q3, and Tom Manley, who didn't make it out of Q1, along with Joris Kroos, and drivers that are expecting heading into this race now. I'd imagine they have probably a little bit better pace than all those that qualified around them, just because it's a little bit rare to see them so far down. So you'd imagine really that they're going to put themselves in a situation to have to push early on to get some early moves done. Otherwise, they're going to be stuck down there with drivers that they shouldn't really be fighting with. So for them, it's going to be an interesting couple of opening laps because they need to get moves done early. So I'd imagine they're going to probably go for that medium hard rather than a hard medium because their main job is get moves done early rather than wait for it to come back later in the race. And then, of course, those further up as well have got an interesting race because the likes of Otis Lawrence, who is still in the top 10 but he's only 7th, he's nowhere near where he expects to be. So he'll be one as well, maybe on those opening couple of laps, going for some lunges, going for some dive bombs, because he'll also want to be a little bit further and up to where we normally expect to see him. So I think opening couple of laps, it'll be elbows out. Drivers trying to get those early moves done. Then it'll probably be everybody sitting back in that train, waiting for the pit stops. That's when things start to get lively because you've got drivers going for different strategies. Some going a lap earlier, some going 2 or 3 laps later. That's going to make things interesting because then it's going to dictate the rest of the race. And well, if someone's pitted on lap 10, it's going to then force drivers to have to pit maybe lap 11 or lap 12. Whereas if the car in first pits on lap 13 and nobody else does, then that's going to relay them to pit later as well. So a lot of the time, it's about that first car that goes in. Everybody else tends to follow that sort of pattern after that of going a lap or 2 later.
Yeah, it very much is a domino effect from there, where we usually wait for someone to come in, and then as soon as that happens, you know that they're all going to start coming in eventually, and it very much creates the cycle of when this race could possibly have a bit of more movement as well, because typically sometimes off the start, you get some races which just remain quite stale, and you wait for the pit stop phase for there to possibly be some changes, for drivers to emerge out, possible DRS, DRS trains on the past, but just trains now regularly to be broken a little bit. So we will very much be keeping an eye on that across this one. I think the opening laps can still be quite entertaining. The drivers are going to be taking quite a few risks like we saw in yesterday's PSGL race. But we'll see what type of race we get. I think by the end result, hopefully, we'll be able to say that we got quite the season opener. And after all of the waiting, the season opener that we deserved.
Yes, certainly. I think another driver as well I'm expecting quite a lot from in the race is Jarno Opmeer. We've known in the past if he does qualify poorly, he tends to work his way up the grid quite nicely. I've seen him in times in PC Tier 1 where he's qualified like 15th, 16th, and he's been fighting for the podium at the end of the race. So I'm expecting Jarno Opmeer to really fight his way through the field. Of course, he's starting a little bit higher up than where he was for PSGL last night. I believe he was in 17th, I think, last night. So a few positions up, a little bit closer to that top 10 on the opening lap. So I'd imagine we can see some potential great things from Opmeer as well. Then also interesting to see what Fabrizio Donoso can do because he's starting last, of course, by choice. He's got a race where you're starting 12 positions from the top 10 in around a track which is not great for overtaking, one of those where trains will grow. Surely for him, it's about trying something outlandish here because that normal strategy probably isn't going to seem to get any points, is it? But he might as well try something different and, of course, put himself into a situation here where he's got nothing to lose, so he can afford to try something a little bit different.
Yeah, we very much see, those type of drivers in that territory, and with Donoso, we really don't know what he's going to be able to do quite yet. But I guess that's another unknown for us to enjoy when it comes to this race and when it comes to the field making their way across 29 laps of Abu Dhabi. But for the moment, it's going to now be those nervy moments, I'm sure, for everyone watching on as the tension continues to build. We do a lot of waiting. We, of course, got to enjoy the F1 Sim Racing World Championship a few months ago and then a bit more waiting. Typically, as I said, we would have already got underway by now, but just to make sure that we could avoid the holiday season for a lot of the drivers and so we could have them all racing, we waited a couple of more weeks than usual, and that's why we're kickstarting now. And of course, we'll get to race all the way until about December, midway through that, and then it's another case of waiting for the actual F1 Sim Racing World Championship and see what happens with that.
Certainly, yes. I'd imagine that we'll get the Sim Racing Championship sometime in the new year, maybe February, March time. I don't think it'll be much later than that because you need to fit it in before F1 27 will get released. So, yes, it's going to be all action for these drivers now. Of course, they've got a long run with both PSGL and WOR up until December. Then it's back on the grind again after Christmas, heading into F1 Sim Racing. So it's non-stop for a lot of these drivers. And, of course, for those that aren't going to be in a main seat, it's also busy for them because their main job is helping support the team, helping support the main three drivers and getting the best strategies, setups, and, giving themselves the best chance to fight high up in the races. So even if a driver isn't in a seat next season, they still have a lot of work to do and are probably going to do a lot of work alongside their teammates who should be racing in the main season. Of course, that's why you see a lot of the drivers that are normally, classed as your 4th or 5th level drivers, the top dev drivers here in Tier 1, because they need to help, gather data and just help their teammates push forward, really. As we are going to head our way into the session shortly. We are just loading in. We've just got to wait for everybody to load in. Then it's the case of getting everybody time to put their setups on, to sort their strategies, have a chat with their engineers and teammates. And then it's like, say, for 29 laps of racing for the first race of season 24, as Thomas Ronhart is the man on pole position. And we know Omi's one of those where if he starts a little bit further down, it can get a little bit chaotic. He does get his elbows out a little bit too much. But if he's the man starting from the front, it's going to be a catch-up for everybody else.
Yeah, you're gonna have to be careful with where you try position the car, and how you try make the move. We expect it to be aggressive, so that's what we're going to be keeping an eye on as they all make their way and line up. Then on the grid at the moment, as you mentioned, it's setups and it's all of that they're organising. So yeah, should be really, really good.
Certainly. And Omi, who's your prediction for the win? Along with everybody else in the chat, let us know who you think is going to win the first race on the F1 26 DLC.
Oh, well, it's going to be fascinating. I was let down by Lawrence when it comes to qualifying. I think, okay, Ron has gone well around here. Double winner around here. So, once again, if I look at logic, I would think him. And then we know he can get his elbows out. So that's what he's going to be trying to do. And I'm going to throw back that question to you. So you don't get away with it this time as well.
Ooh, who's going to win? You know what? I'm going to go for the man in 4th place, Keane Godendorp, a driver that I've been following for quite a while. I've seen him through the likes of, the Tier 2s in the past, and starting P4 today, a good position from him to just go high. So I'm going to go for the Red Bull man, Keane Godendorp.
It's going to be bold, really, really fun.
Someone's got to go outside the box.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very much a split commentary box. I've taken a bit more of the sensible approach today, and you're going a little bit more bold. Yeah, absolutely. A bit more of the easy approach. A bit more of if you had to try and predict what would happen, as we have all 5 lights on and a new season is underway, and we are racing down to turn number 1. Thomas Ronhart finds himself with the race lead. Rasmussen in 2nd place, and then it is Butcher slotting in 3rd as they all try and make their way through. As Ilderim on that hard compound of tyre, he's the highest on that compound as they try and get through turn number 4 and then make their way downhill to turn 5. Ronhart held the advantage off the start. You've got Fassi, who's trying to make a move in the middle of the pack. He's up against Tamas Gal as Jan Halliday fights his way past Godendorp, who loses a position off the line, but Ronhart still has the lead as they do battle further back.
Indeed, back down towards turn 6 we go in the opening lap. Pierre Godendorp's on the inside, on the outside of Jan Halliday, as he's actually going to go for a move there on Alfie Butcher potentially. He's made a bit of a mistake, and that's allowed the Cadillac to come back at him. But another man who's there for the taking is Otis Lawrence, up to P5 after starting in P7, has also got a chance here to maybe go after Jan Halliday. He switches to the outside line. It's going to be 3 wide in towards turn 9 on the opening lap. It's Lawrence in the middle. He has to back out, but he's going to get a superb run on the outside of Godendorp once again down towards turn 12 to maybe make an opportunity to get ahead of the Cadillac. Of course, he made that move. Godendorp came back at him, and for now, the Cadillac keeps that P5 spot. A very intense opening here around Abu Dhabi. Of course, in terms of strategy, everybody on the mediums, apart from Azildrim and Barry Burman, then everybody else behind that. And then, of course, Donoso is on the mediums at the back. But lots of interesting strategies here, and a big group on the hard tyre.
Absolutely. So you've got a lot of them going for the hards. Nearer to the front of the field is the mediums mostly, of course, with Azildrim on that compound. And the man in your picture, Barry Burmond, is very close on the back right now of Jarno Opmeer as we go down to turn number 5, where you can usually try and send it. We look over to Beaumont's teammate of Fassi, and he's getting his elbows out in the middle of the pack. Pookie sent out a little bit wide, and he tucks directly back in at this moment in time. So Fassi already making sure that he's keeping those higher positions as he tries to make further improvements, and he's looking for that outside line as they make their way down towards turn number 6.
Indeed, and Opmeer there was close up to the back of Tamashgal, but couldn't quite make a move on that occasion, and has actually allowed Barry Borman to close in here. He's just within a couple of tenths of the Flying Dutchman as they head down towards turn number 9 once again here on lap 2 of this race. Of course, Opmeer's had a good start to get ahead of a couple of cars that were on the mediums, and also to keep ahead of Barry Borman, who's on the hards. That was a quick car to get rid of early at the start of this race. Of course, on the hards, he'll be a little bit slower for the opening couple of laps, he will, Borman. And then, of course, interesting scenes there by Ulash Azildrim taking the hards, and at the moment hasn't lost out, has actually made a position since the start here as Ulash Azildrim, so it's going well for him on those different tyres. And if he can stay there and keep the pace, this could be a really good strategy here for Azildrim. If he pits at the right time and can get the moves done at the right time, he could be flying at the end of the race.
Absolutely. So that could be very much interesting to keep an eye on later on as we look to try and see who's closest for a move down towards turn 5. And Opmeer placing the car on that wider line. He was kind of sent in towards an overtake there. With different battery levels meeting in the middle. Opmeer was still running at a higher pace as he made his way into the hairpin there, and now he's just trying to keep his line and see what happens then for the next corner. But he's a driver who knows if he can try and make some overtakes, it's going to be very, very helpful. Lawrence is battling with Godendorp further up ahead, and there is the Alpine ahead of the man we're on board with, Godendorp, who is in 6th.
Indeed, there a nice move from Otis Lawrence on lap 3 to make that move and to jump himself up into the top 5 and just start to bring himself closer and closer to where we expect to see the young Welshman, as that's going to be Tamas Gal still fending off from Jarno Opmeer. A very good defence here from the Audi. As Opmeer's going to be side by side, he's going to have the inside line in towards turn 12, but that's also forced Tamas Gal to go for a move. Honest Van Pookie in towards turn 13 and 14. They're side by side through in towards turn 15, and Tamas Gal's made the move done. So as he was getting under pressure from Opmeer, he's actually ended up making a move as that's Pookie back up the inside into the final corner. Back down to turn 1 we go. It's going to be Pookie on that inside line, on the outside line, in towards that opening corner to try and swoop it around on Tamas Gal. We have had our first retirement of the race, and it will be Ruben Petrenio is out in the pit lane and done and dusted for the first round of season 24.
Yep, so our first retirement of the season as we make our way through down towards the hairpin once again. Still Opmeer involved in the scrapping and in the battling. Burman tried to make a move last time out. When we made our way through this part of the circuit, they all try and tuck in once again. And then we try fan out if you are looking for that overtake. It's Pookie up against Tamas Gal at this stage, who very much was forced into a bit of an overtake as Opmeer momentarily sideways as he makes his way through alongside Pookie, and he'll try and have this maneuver down towards turn number 9. He'll be on the outside. The Williams defending. At this stage, he's going to have to be brave from there, Will Opmeer. And the line is going to favour the Williams, who is in 11th position. So just to keep a bit of an update as well as to what is going on as they try and go single file through this third final part of the lap. Pedrino, from his perspective, it appears like he was experiencing desync, and he's trying to also just talk to Luke about that. So that's why he's retired. So we'll keep an eye on what happens with that, but for now we'll enjoy the battling through the final few corners.
Indeed, there's lots of battling going on further behind us. Tom Manley's getting his elbows out to go ahead of Julian Klaffenbach and close then on Josh Idowu, who's up into P17, and Klaffenbach's gone back up the inside of Tom Manley and retakes an 18th place. It's not been a good start for the boys in Haas. Julian in 18th and Joris down in P20. Joris might have an opportunity here to go ahead of Tom Manley, but either way, those two should be fighting a lot further up than they are at the moment. Of course, Klaffenbach was fighting for the championship last season, and Joris Krozen finished 4th back in season 18. So definitely not where we expect to see those two as we have a look further ahead here. And Thomas Ronhart still is your race leader with a comfortable 7/10 gap now to Freddie Rasmussen, who brings that down quickly, followed by Alfie Butcher and Jan Halliday, with Otis Lawrence reigning off the top 5. But as the race goes on, he's starting to close in here to the back of Halliday's Lawrence, so maybe a move for P4 isn't that far away.
Yeah, absolutely isn't far away at the moment in time, as we see further back Klaffenbach lose a position momentarily and then he gains one immediately back. So they're having a bit of a ding-dong for 17th and 18th at this moment in time as we cut over to the Haas and the Mercedes wheel to wheel through these final few corners, and then they'll make their way towards the final two of this Abu Dhabi Yas Marina circuit. It's a very good view from the perspective of Tom Manley, and he'll definitely want to be a bit more higher up, and it's going to be Klaffenbach getting his elbows out, and that brilliantly opens the door for Manley, who was sitting there, who was being patient, is now the battery levels meet in the middle. That means that Manley gets boxed in, and it is Klaffenbach back down the inside, and we continue scrapping now through this opening sector.
Indeed, some great battling further down the field here as Yoshido gets a 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. I'm sure we saw him go wide twice there on that through that last corner. Went through wide into turn 15, then the same through turn 16. So a penalty is awarded to his name, as we do see Ismail Fassi there trying to fend off from Tamas Gal, who was looking for the move down towards turn 5, but couldn't quite make it work as Pookie again goes for the send on Gal as they make their way through and towards a chicane, and Gal defends it nicely, but it will be a good run out of the corner here for Pookie, who can maybe find an opportunity. Back up towards turn number 9. He's going to be closing in here, is the Hungarian. He's going to move to the outside line here to go for a move on Tamas Gal. That was risky. He can't make it work that time and has actually brought Jarno Otmir back into the battle.
It very much has, and that's what happens in this type of train, where if there is a battle ahead between two drivers, if they continue fighting, and if they get and if they of course lose time due to that, it'll invite others in who can try and take advantage of exactly that, as we'll come through the final few turns once again. Otmir within that overtaking range, and it's all about, can you get an open door of an inside line where you can try and send the car in, and then you're not trying to do anything too rash at this stage, where it's still a long way to go in this race. But if you are lowered down, which Otmir is after that qualifying session, if you can make some progress, and that of course is very, very handy, and you want to try and do that, and his first chance will be towards turn 5 to try and have another overtake.
He's not close enough there, is Otmir. Well, he probably could have been if he went for the send, but he decided not to and just stick back behind the rear of the Williams for now. He might get himself an opportunity down towards turn 6, but as it stands, he will still stay in P12. He's got to be careful, though, of Barry Burman as this race goes on, and probably over the next couple of laps, those tyres for Barry will get quicker. The hard tyres will have a little bit more grip than what the mediums have, so Otmir will have to start looking in his rear mirrors soon at what the Ferrari can try and do to him, because he will certainly be looking to make the moves as soon as possible once those tyres go more in the favour of the harder compound. As no moves there made their lap time, as Otmir closed right up to the back of Pookie, just not quite close enough to make a move on that occasion. As we look further ahead, though, back up towards the front, Ronhar's been closed down slightly by Freddie Rasmussen. That gap at around 3 to 4 tenths at the moment. They've got Alfie Butcher still there in third, but Jan Halliday is closing in, as well as Otis Lawrence in 4th and 5th. So might be some opportunities for those two. And then also, look at Ulash Azildrim here. He's looking very quick on those hard tyres as Otmir is in. Jarno Otmir pits early. That's very early for Otmir. Lap 8 of 29, and he's in for a set of the hard tyres. Now, that is a bold call, Omi.
Yeah, and he's the driver who does something completely different usually, and that's run out long and be the driver that, takes it a lot more longer than we'd expect. As we go back over to the train, and Azildrim now makes that move on the hard compound of tyre to get past Berezne, who is on those mediums. So the first pit stop then taking place, and we'll see over the next few laps, is anyone going to try and follow? As we look in with Klaffenbach, putting the pressure on Luca Rapassa. Rapassa covering that inside line down towards turn number 6. A lot of open door, though, for Klaffenbach. The long way round, outside to inside, and he's gained the place on the exit.
Indeed. Well, whether this is true or not, we've had some information in the chat saying that Jarno Otmir said, I guess we do too. And I'd imagine that means 2 stop here in this one. So
yeah,
that's interesting. However, though, the normal pit lap's on lap 11. So I mean, that's early anyway, lap 11, but either way, it'd be a little bit weird to only go a couple laps early to go for a complete different strategy, but we'll have to wait and see what doors open for Jarno Otmir, as we're having some great battles further down. But I have noticed Godendorp's closed in this lap on the back of Otis Lawrence, so is there something here that the Cadillac can do to spring on the back of the Alpine? Because another driver who I was mentioning before we saw Otmir go in, Ulash Azildrim, very quick, has closed up quickly to the back of Godendorp. We also saw there Luca Rapassa and Dortensio being overtaken by the hard compounds of tyres. I don't think it'll be that long before we see Azildrim past Gurdendup and maybe on the rear of Otis Lawrence.
Yeah, absolutely. As once again, battery levels meeting in the middle. This time it's going to be Azildrim, though, who was much more closer anyway, due to that tyre that's going to be getting better and better with every meter that we run in this race at this stage. So he gets up to 6th place and continues his run up the field. It's getting very close as we go 3 wide momentarily. Pookie backs out of it. Gal is going to continue battling away with Fassi, who is the car ahead, in towards the braking zone of turn 6. It'll still be side by side between the Audi and the Williams on the exit, and all the way around the outside will be Gal, and he'll take that place. And now that could open the door for Barry Burman, who'll be trying to make some progress on that hard compound of tyre up against the medium runners at this stage.
Indeed, and the thing here that that's a brilliant move from Burman. Goes through on 1. Can he get through on 2? I don't think he was opting for a move, but Gal and Pookie came together into turn 9, and it has given Barry Burman a big opportunity to go ahead of the Audi and then maybe just sit with his teammates. And I'd assume at this point Fassi would let him through quickly because he, of course, is quicker than his Ferrari teammate. But brilliant work, and I think Fassi probably had a part to play there by putting himself in a difficult spot for both Gal and Pookie just to allow Barry Burman to close in. He can get in the back of his teammate, and you'd imagine down towards the chicane or maybe down to turn 5. Burman should go through on the other Ferrari, and this could be another really good strategy here for Burman because he's not that far behind Ulash Azildrim, who we were saying earlier on could also be on for a good strategy, as he's now on the back of Otis Lawrence.
Yep. Another overtake incoming. Turn number 5 seems to be the part of the circuit where, of course, he just gets that much closer, and then he wasn't able to get by this time around, but he's put himself within range down the straight. Also keep an eye on Halliday, who is very close to the back of Butcher, so we'll see whether any form of a move comes in. It'll only be if it's an obvious move that is on the cards, because they're all in the train at the moment. So they're all just right now running as they head through. That's Galahad of Pookie. And then, of course, you've got Gabor also, who is behind his teammate for this race on lap number 10 out of 29. Back down the straight we go, and it's an easy switch between the Ferraris. Not really a position exchange, but because Barry Burman now is on the optimal tyres, the hard compound at this stage of the race, he is allowed by.
Indeed, and look at quickly. Jana Watme is bringing that time down, a couple of seconds gained since that pit stop. So this is looking really good for Otmere. Of course, has gone risky, he's gone early. Of course, if it's a 2-stop, he's got a lot of pushing to do. If it's not, then he might have a lot of tyre saving to do later on, as Jan Halliday will be in. I think there's another car as well popping into the pit lane. That's going to be the Alpine of Danny Berejnay, along with the Williams of Istvan Pookie. Now, this is the lap where we normally expect cars to start pitting. So where will they come out compared to Watme? I'd imagine Jarno might get the jump on him just because he's gained so much on this train already. We'll keep an eye on the Red Bull as he makes his way down to turn 1. And he's comfortably ahead of all three of them is Otmere. This could be a strategy for the ages here for the Dutchman.
Yep, absolutely. If it does work out, then it absolutely will be, where he's done something completely different, but we'll keep an eye on how things are going to work out in that regard. As meanwhile, Azildrim seems like he's been able to fight his way by. And Lawrence, of course, won't be contesting that one too much at this stage. 2 different races meeting in the middle, and Azildrim continues his charge up through the field.
Indeed, as we do see as well, Josh Idowu and Luca Rapassa closing up to each other into turn 9. A chance might be on here for Idowu up the inside of Rapassa and gets that move made and jumps himself up into 15th. A nice move there from the Alpine driver in the Mercedes here this season. As we're going to go a little bit further ahead here and just have a look at the top 2. Of course, it's Ronhar and Rasmussen ahead of Butcher and Ozzy Uldrim now. So we'll see when any of these go into the pit lane. Ronhar's in. Rasmussen and Butcher stay out. What does Otis Lawrence do? Does he also come in? No. He's also opting to go longer as well. So a lot of these drivers here, Romy, are going a lot longer than Otmere. Are also going to be at least a lap or 2 longer than Halliday, Berejnay and Pookie. This could certainly turn into a bit of an interesting race later on when everybody starts to close up and you start to have those mixtures of different laps of tyre age.
Yeah, absolutely. As we head down towards turn number 5 once again. That is Klaffenbach still on the back of Tamas Gal. But yeah, the drivers and of course the teams, they've all had a go at this basically yesterday. And in case they didn't like something that happened yesterday, they basically get a chance to try and correct that and go a bit of a different way. As that's going to be close, as Ildrim trying to make easy, simple passes at this stage, but it's getting a little bit more feisty than he would have wanted as he tries to get up into second place. He's still not in second place, and Butcher is maintaining the advantage, but this is allowing Freddie Rasmussen to try pull away as Ildrim will get the inside in towards turn number 9. They still remain wheel to wheel and still run side by side, but it is the Racing Bulls driver who on the exit will make his way through.
Great work there by Ildrim. Of course, a bit of contact between him and Butcher down toward turn 6, I believe. As I don't think Butcher quite saw him there and turned him for the corner, but I see Ildrim certainly was there, looking for the move. So a little bit of feistiness between those two here on lap 12 of 29. I'd imagine that lots of Rasmussen and Butcher might be in. Yep, they all are. Oh, Otis Lawrence there. Not sure what happened, whether he was trying to trick cars behind him or whether he got told to stay out at the last moment. He flicked to the right and flicked back to the left and continues on. But that certainly could have ended bad for him as he was all over the track at that point there. That could have easily ended in a spin for the Alpine.
It very much could have. Very much could have. But luckily, everything's still ongoing. He's still running all nicely in this race. But it definitely could have got a little bit more interesting for all the other drivers. Definitely not in his regard. But where the race will continue as Thomas Ronhard behind Halliday, who of course made his way in one lap earlier and therefore has the track advantage and has the position on the circuit.
Indeed, of course, Thomas Ronhard was the man who started on pole and was leading until the pit stop started to come through. You'd imagine this might be an easy pick here ahead of Jan Halliday. Pulls to the inside and he's already a car length ahead before they head on the brakes. So nice work there from Ronhard. And then you'd imagine the same will be for getting past Danny Berejnay. I don't think there's much that the Alpine can offer here in terms of defence. Of course, he's not going to have that extra boost, which Ronhard will have as they make their way down to turn 9. And he just flies past the Alpine. No defence from Berejnay. And I don't think there was any defence he could have given either.
Very much so, very much so. Just no options, and you really don't want to lose time because as much as you are, of course, rivaled, at this stage, you're all kind of doing the same thing. You don't want to lose time or it'll harm you all, basically, in a simple way. It won't do any of you good, so there's no point crazily battling it out because that will just help drivers who are on a completely different strategy, who are doing something a bit different, and who would love a bit of time loss for those that they're up against. So Ronhard that time by, of course, fastest lap of the race for him as we make our way in towards turn number 1. Yellow flags flying, and I think that's Josh who's found himself with a bit of a moment momentarily.
Yeah, something's happened there to Josh Idowu, heading his way through turn 4, down towards turn 5, and he's going very slowly. So whether he's had a bit of a spin or he's just had to collect the car and slow down, something's happened to him as Alfie Butcher there, further back, is making a move ahead of Istvan Pukki. Of course, 2 laps advantage here for Butcher. Makes a move and he's going to start to close down on Rasmussen, who's looking to make a move ahead of Jan Halliday. Halliday looks to defend. Rasmussen's got to be careful though because there is Danny Berejnay just ahead of him as they make their way through the chicane. Move made for the Red Bull and Rasmussen can look to close down on Berejnay and then maybe get back into that battle with Thomas Ronhard, who at the moment is net P2. It's Jarno Uppbeat, who's your net leader of the race, of course pitted very early. 4 lap older tyres than Ronhard, and look how much quicker that Ronhard's brought that gap down. It's went from about 4 seconds to 1.5. This is going to be difficult from Uppbeat unless he's going for that 2-stop, because otherwise he's going to get swallowed up by the others when they start to catch up.
Absolutely will be the case as well as we get past half race distance then on our season opening race. Great to have your company wherever you might be watching us from in the world. As we're going to see our second retirement of the contest coming after that moment for Idowu. So that's going to be his day over. And we'll continue then with the 20 that we have remaining in the field. Different strategy races going on. Alfie Butcher is on the back of Jan Halliday, who went 2 laps earlier. So Butcher's going to be trying to set up a bit of an easy move without losing time to those cars ahead.
Certainly, as Butcher, you'd imagine, is going to have a decent chance of making this move ahead of Halliday down towards the chicane. He's going to have to push for it because he's going to start to lose time there. Halliday's got older tyres than the car ahead, as that's a big send from the McLaren of Alfie Butcher. He's going to have the outside line on the exit of the chicane and has performed brilliantly to make that move ahead of the Aston Martin, who drops down to P15. He might try and fight back, Will Halliday, but I don't think there's much he can do in either way. It's probably not worth it because it'll just lose him time to Istvan Pukki behind. And then, of course, some of the cars to keep an eye on here will be the likes of Godendorp and Gal, who have got 3 lap better tyres than Halliday and Pukki. We'll have to keep an eye and see how quickly they start to bring that gap down, as we do see further ahead there. Lawrence will be in the pit lane, so Otis Lawrence, a lot longer than many others, will make his pit stop along with Fasching and Angelo D'Ortenzio, as that's a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane for Ishmael Fassi. What a disaster that is, and that's pretty much him done and dusted for a top 10 finish.
Yep, when the margins are so close, it very much is going to put him straight out of the fight, and it'll put him all the way at the back. What a shame for him, and that is a race ruiner for the Ferrari man, who, as we mentioned, ended the F1 Sim Racing World Championship on such a high, taking victory at this circuit, winning 3 races in a row, and basically coming just 2 points short in that championship battle, as we now take a look to see whether we're going to get some other overtakes. Freddie Rasmussen alongside the Alpine. Is it going to be nice and easy like he wants it to? He's going to find the apex first, and he's going to be up to a net 3rd position, and he will be the net 2nd in terms of the drivers who are on this very much strategy where they came in at the expected time. Of course, Opme came in much more earlier.
Certainly did so, as Rasmussen is closing down on the back of Ron Hart. And I don't think Opme is going to have much to do in defence here. He might just try his best to keep Ron Hart close to Rasmussen to allow the second Red Bull to make that move and potentially go ahead of the Mercedes car. But of course, they've got to be careful how much they fight, because it will allow others behind to go to come into the battle and maybe think about moves themselves. As we are seeing the front of the hard runners come in. So Gabor Chontos will be the first to enter the pit lane in the Williams car. He'll go into a set of medium tyres and take them to the end. Of course, the key metric here will be following how quickly he starts to gain up to some of those on the hard tyres, because of course these mediums, I'd imagine, in the first few laps will be absolutely flying, but I'd imagine by the lap 25-26 they're probably going to be starting to lose pace. So you'd imagine now for Chontos and those that will be pitting soon off of the hard tyres, it's about getting those moves done early on the medium, so you don't have to worry about trying to make moves on older tyres later on, as this is Ron Hart looking for a move ahead of Jarno Opme for the lead of the race. Down towards turn 6 we go, and that was an easy move by the Mercedes. No defence offered from Jarno Opme, and there's nothing he could have done about it anyway. You'd imagine as well here, Omi, it should be an easy move as well for Freddie Rasmussen.
Yep, absolutely. Out of the way. Nicely clean route opened up. And through goes Rasmussen then, and he will continue his fight, his long-term fight with Ron Hart in this race as they continue to attack now through this 3rd sector. And we'll see how quickly Butcher can try and make the move. Basically about half a tenth away when he arrives down through these final couple of turns, but he's just waiting for the door to open, not trying anything rash as Barry Burman comes in. So does Klaffenbach as well at this stage.
Indeed, so a couple more of the hard runners are making their pit stops, and we'll be moving to a medium to go to the end. Gabor Chontos is only 6 tenths away from Luca Rapassa, so in a moment we'll have a little peek over at that battle to see how quickly Chontos can get those mediums fired up, as Alfie Butcher is all over the back of Jarno Opme, but 5 lap better tyres for Butcher. You're not expecting Jarno Opme to be able to do anything as Butcher just flies past him. And there's no point Jarno defending, because if he does defend, he's just going to cost them time. And you'd imagine next on the case will be Danny Barishnay to make a move ahead of the Dutchman and jump himself up now into the top 7 and a net top 5 place. A really good race so far by Danny Barishnay, who's starting to make a couple of moves. But of course, one driver that we're going to have to keep an eye on later on as well is going to be Otis Lawrence. Of course, pitted a lot later than those in that lead train. 2 lap old tyres. He's now starting to catch up quite quickly to the back of Keen Godendorp.
Is indeed. So that'll be very much interesting to keep an eye on as we cut over to Luca Rapassa being off the circuit as Gabor tried to make a simple pass. There's definitely more to it than that though, because when we cut on board, we had the McLaren off the circuit. And yeah, luckily we're all running and they've all made the exit of that corner. But yes, a bit of a switch in a dramatic way of position.
Certainly. There's 3 cars left to pit in this one. It's going to be Ozildrim, Crozen and Manley. As we have had a yellow flag, somebody's going to reign somewhere. Either that or they've gone wide. And I'm not sure who it is, so we'll have to keep an eye and see who drops down the order. I'd imagine it must have just been a mistake somewhere. They've gone off the track and a yellow flag briefly came out onto circuits, as we did see there as well. Uppbeat going again. We missed that one. Jarno Uppbeat onto a set of the hard tyres. The two-stop strategy for the Red Bull. He's come out just behind Tom Manley. And I mean, it's 10 laps to go. He's going to have better tyres. And if you're saying to any driver on the grid, right, you've got 10 laps to bring a gap down, you've had a poor qualifying, you've got to try and get something out of the race, I think the one man you're going to say that to is Jarno Uppbeat, because his race intelligence, his racecraft is miles better than anybody else's, in my opinion. So I'd imagine that he should start to bring that gap down. Whether he can get a top 10 or not is going to be something we're going to have to keep an eye on until the end. But I still imagine he's going to get himself a decent finish anyway, maybe top 15, top 14.
Yeah, and that would be where, you know, realistically, he was going to be anyway, with how currently he is with the game, and his pace levels at the moment in time. We, of course, expect them to get better and better, because he always finds a way to dial it in, especially when it comes to race trim. So looking forward to seeing that across the rest of the season. We've only just kick-started the season. It's round 1, and we've got Isildur making his way in towards the pit lane. The net leader, Thomas Ronha, will become the overall leader on the circuit, and then we can properly have our battle for the win from there all the way until the end.
Now, this is probably the driver I'm most excited to see in these next few laps. Ulash Isildur started quite well in P8, got a couple of moves done, and managed to pull away from all of those on the hard tyres after some brilliant race work in that first stint. He comes out in P16 on a brand new set of the medium tyres. I'm quite confident he can go for a comfortable top 10 here, Isildur, and maybe even go higher, because he's in a very good situation on some very, very decent medium tyres. And given there's only 9 laps left, he's only going to be 2 more laps into the stage where the mediums aren't going to be so great. Most of this stint is going to be him on very good medium tyres, as Burman goes ahead of Luca Rapassa and gets himself up into P11. I think a top 10 could still be on the cards here for Burman. And another driver who's doing quite well, Gabor Chontos, up to P10. Could he be on for some points here tonight?
Very much so. Has got some fast customers in behind for sure, but right now he is there, and he is in that top 10 position, and he's going to be trying to close down on these type of drivers very, very soon, and then we'll see whether he can try remain there by the time the checkered flag comes on the 29th and final lap of the race. Still a lot to go, still a lot to happen before we get to that, as we check in with Godendorp, who is on the back of Jan Halliday down towards turn number 1 on lap 21 now of this race. The field now very much settled in. We've had the strategies all come in, and you've got some drivers trying to go on the attack, others who are just hoping that they can hang on in there and make their way through to the end of this race. So this is now where all of the strategy is about to happen, and we're about to get everything coming our way, as that's Tom Manley, who momentarily has had a moment definitely through those final few turns, and is coming into the pit lane possibly to retire.
A race to forget for the V-Carb driver. Definitely not been the start he would have been hoping for, unfortunately, as Barry Burman makes a move ahead of Gabor Chontos. But big shame for Manley. Has always been very competitive here in PC Tier 1. So certainly an odd performance to see him qualify so far down and then not be able to do anything to fight back in the race. But I'm sure he'll bounce back quickly when we head to Saudi Arabia next time out. As we do see Isildur on the back of Ismail Fassi, or as the Gen Z will call him, Tung Tung Fasur, as he's making his way down towards turn 12 now. You'd imagine it's an easy picking really for Isildur. It won't be down towards this corner, but you'd imagine he's got to get him down to turn 5, maybe even down to turn 1, depending what grip he has out of the final corner. But this is the only issue that Isildur's got to face. He's got the pace, but he's just got to be careful he doesn't get caught up to cars in the wrong corner. Oh! And is that Lawrence into the wall? He spins out to the final corner. And Otis Lawrence with damage on that front wing somehow survives, but he's made a catastrophic mistake. He's got no front ring, and that surely is him out of the race.
Well, one of your championship favourites already with drama, and that is exactly what we were saying at the start of the day. Things can go a little bit unexpected here in WOR. There's always going to be hurdles, there's always going to be things thrown up in the air, and that's the F1 Sim Racing World Champion, the reigning champion as well of WOR, that has found himself with a troublesome way to kickstart this season and kickstart season 24, and he'll look to try and get his campaign back going properly from round 2 next time out in Jeddah. But right now in Abu Dhabi, that is a race ruiner.
0 point for Otis Lawrence in the first round of WOR PC Tier 1. Now, that is not something I'd expect to be saying at the end of this one. What a shame for the man who performed so well last night in PSGL. He had a bit of a poor qualifying for his normal level today. And from what I saw, at least, it looks like he just lost it completely on the exit of the final corner. Must have got on the curb dodgy and just sent that car spinning. What a shame for Otis Lawrence, and he'll be very disappointed with that one as Zildrim gets a 3-second time penalty. So the man who was looking to work his way through the field and maybe get a decent points finish is now going to have 3 seconds added on to his end of the race. What a shame for the V-Cob. I'd imagine he might be able to try and squeeze in a top 10, but I don't think it'll be much higher than that. And things here, Omi, are flying around. Lap 20 onwards, it's gone a little bit crazy.
It has. We have got to that territory where it is all just going a little bit mad as they go through turn 5. This is Gal versus Pookie. This will help drivers like Barry Beaumont to try and close in as they make their way then down the straight, and we wait for them to arrive to the braking zone, and it's Gal ahead of Pookie as they hit the anchors right about now. Lots of battling going on further back, so that's Klaffenbach getting past Gabel, and then you've got Uzildrim who's ahead of Repassa as well. Of course, quite a few penalties between Fassi, Repassa and Uzildrim at this stage, so penalties are going to play a big part, and it's very much going to be a race ruiner for them, especially for Fassi with that 10-second that he has next to his name. 3 seconds for the 2 ahead as they go through turn 9, and we now wait and see what will be the next thing that throws this race up in the air. We've got a top 3 right now that are all running close together. Of course, Beresne is in that train as well, but he is just, slightly creeping towards that 1 second margin and outside that 1 second as things stand. So this is a greatly poised race, and Godendorp is a driver looking to go on the attack, currently 6th, and he's chasing down Jan Halliday.
Certainly is, and of course Godendorp's got better tyres than Halliday, and the same for Tamashkal as well, so you'd imagine those two should be able to make some quite nice moves in this one and maybe get themselves up into the top 5 or even higher, depending on how things go. As we do see Rasmussen closing in on the back of Thomas Ronhard, but he's not going to make a move just yet. As we do see Azildrim go ahead of Gabel Chontos and make his way into P11, and then of course have a difficult task of trying to get 3 seconds ahead of those cars behind us. Here we might have a move for the lead. Rasmussen goes to the inside line. Ronhard tries to defend it. They're going to be side by side onto the brakes. Rasmussen takes the lead, but he's going to have a poor exit out of turn 7. So it's a big opportunity for Ronhard to come back at him down towards turn 9. Red Bull versus Mercedes at Abu Dhabi. We've seen this many times before. As to the inside line goes Rasmussen. Ronhard's going to try and take it all the way around the outside. He can't quite do so. So it's Freddie Rasmussen taking the lead. 5 laps to go ahead of Thomas Ronhard. This could certainly get more interesting though, because next lap around, Omi, you're going to see that overtake mode being given to the Mercedes man.
Yep, so he's going to be given that extra bit of battery to try and use in attacking Rasmussen. Whether he chooses to do exactly that, we will wait and see as we make our way through to the final corner. Pookie going for it late on the brakes, and he's going to be getting his way past Godendorp. Godendorp does have the fresher tyres at this stage, but he finds himself losing out to the Williams man through those final few turns, and then we arrive down at turn number 1, and then through 2, 3, as Crozen, another one of our very talented drivers in the field, is going to find himself with not the opening round that he would have wanted. He finds himself out and retired, but Ronhard is once again tucked in the wheel tracks. And you've also got Alfie Butcher there as well. Now he's kind of just waiting, sitting in behind and seeing what type of opportunities will be coming his way as we make our way down towards turn number 6.
Ronhard sits back. You never quite know what Thomas Ronhard's going to do, because if a move's there, he's going to go for it. This time he sits back and just allows Rasmussen to hold the lead, but of course he wants that overtake mode as well, which he's going to hold on to if he stays behind in second place. But of course he's got to be wary of Butcher behind. If he's just too content on sitting behind Rasmussen, Butcher's going to look to pounce at some point and maybe go for a move to get ahead of Thomas Ronhard. And of course if they keep slowing each other down and not going for overtakes, it could allow Beresne and Halliday to maybe close in and get involved too. So certainly a very interesting few laps to go here. We'll start lap 26 next time round. 3 to go in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Round 1 of season 24 here in PC Tier 1, and currently it's Freddie Rasmussen, your race leader, ahead of Thomas Ronhard and Alfie Butcher in third, and then it's Beresne and Halliday rounding off the top 5.
Yep, that is the case at the moment. Through turn number 1, final stages of this race now. We enter, and let's see whether drivers like Burman can go on that charge. Of course, on that medium compound of tyres, Ronhard just sitting in behind at this moment in time. It continues to be very close, nearer to the front of the field. But meanwhile, we'll have to look further back. So Halliday's going to be battling with Tamas Gal. Meanwhile, Barry Burmond and Azildrim begin to now go on the attack as they've chased down these drivers. As we, meanwhile, have a change of the lead possibly incoming, because Ronhard is sending it a long way round in towards turn number 6. And it is going to be outside to inside for Ronhard, who takes the lead. But does Rasmussen get the chance to fight back? Down towards turn number 9. So the move came in last second as they continue scrapping away. Further back, we watch in with Alfie Butcher, and the top 2 are just going to settle things in at the moment, but that will open the door for Butcher, who's got the inside line, and he's trying to get through into second place, but he can't do it at the moment. Nothing to separate the top 3.
As Alfie Butcher might go for it again in towards turn 12, but he has to back out. Of course, Rasmussen has no overtake mode on this lap, hence why Alfie Butcher's so close to the back of him and has had a couple of opportunities to make an overtake. Brilliant work here by Alfie Butcher, but he just can't quite paint ahead of Freddie Rasmussen just yet. Of course, Rasmussen himself, despite being one of the greatest we've ever seen, has only got 1 win here in World Online Racing and 2 podiums. So it's looking to be potentially 2 wins here for Rasmussen. But for Thomas Ronhart, he could be looking to extend that gap ahead of Uppbeat and make it 14 victories in PCT1, unless Butcher, Berejne and Gout can look to try and change that as well.
It is a great race currently ongoing at the moment. There goes Tamas Gal now. The move comes in on Berezne, gets a little bit sideways when he makes his way through the exit of the corner. And now we continue down this straight, one of your main overtaking opportunities. And then if you can't get it done into turn 6, you'll get the opportunity towards turn 9 as well. It's going to be close between Williams and Aston Martin at this stage. We jump on board with Pookie, who's trying to send it all the way around the outside. Halliday is going to be battling with him, and now keep an eye on Azildrim, who's going to be surely to the side and trying to make it 3 wide in that Racing Bulls car. Is he going to have the momentum? Is he going to be able to fight his way through the long way round? This is going to be brave from Azildrim. Past 1, past 2, surely on the apex. Around the outside he'll go, and he'll fight his way by. He saw the battling between the 2 drivers who've got 16 lap old hard compound of tyres, and he gets through.
Oh, superb scenes. So that's a car going half round. I think that was Keen Gerdendorp. Managed to hold on, but he was half spinning through the exit of turn 12. He's managed to hold ahead of Jan Halliday, but you've got Klaffenbach there in behind. He's made a move ahead of Halliday as well. Halliday can't quite fight back in towards the final corner. Back down to turn 1 we go. And what a strategy this has been from Julian Klaffenbach. We were saying earlier on, him and Croson not having the best start, but Julian now is up into the top 8 comfortably, as we do see Jan Halliday go very wide and nearly hit the barriers through turn 2 as Fab Donoso gets the car. Oh, and that's going to be Barry Burman round. There's contact and the Ferrari goes round into 15th place. What a shame for Barry Burman. And things are starting to get hectic here on lap 28 of 29 as we do look further ahead. As Ildrim's got the move done for P5 and Butcher's closing down on Rasmussen here for P2.
Absolutely, Burman once again finds his way to the barrier just like yesterday. What a shame for him. It's definitely not the start of the season that Ferrari would have wanted one bit, but right now at the moment, you've got 3 great contenders at the front. You've got the Mercedes of Ronhard, you've got the Red Bull of Rasmussen, then you've got Butcher as well, waiting for his opportunity. Is he going to find the momentum now? All the way around the outside, he's been looking for these type of chances to come in, and he can't quite get through, and Ronhard is very much trying to back these 2 up, and they go 3 wide as Butcher finds the inside line. That is absolutely unbelievable. They're off the circuit, and it's going to be Rasmussen who will rejoin the road in the lead, but it all gets a little bit chaotic as Butcher fights his way by the long way round to take the lead.
3 wide into turn 12 is not something we expect to see, as Rasmussen's going to be under pressure here from Ronhart, who goes on the outside line. Down towards turn 1 we go, and Tamas Gal, he's came out of nowhere. He's on the back of the battle for the podium as we head on to the final lap of the race. Alpha Butcher's your race leader ahead of Rasmussen second. Third is Ronhart, but I don't think Tamas Gal is done in fourth. He might have a chance here, Obi, of going for the top 3.
This is going to be an amazing final lap of the race. That's what it's all coming down to. And now we see Ronhart look for the move. He knows that he wants to be in second place to try and go on the attack, as Gal also is currently just trying to keep it together. But it's going to be a battle for second as they chase down Alfie Butcher for the lead.
Indeed, down towards turn 6 we go. for the final time in this race. Ronhar's got the inside line. He's going to switch behind the back of Rasmussen. He then switches back to the inside line. On the brakes they go. They're wheel rubbing in towards turn 6 and 7 at the chicane. They're both going to poor exit. Here goes Tamas Gal to go around the outside of 1. He might have the chance to go around the outside of 2. Azildrim's there as well. I think Alfie Butcher's going to run away with this, but for 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th, it's still to be decided, and Gal goes through, but Rasmussen's got a better line up the inside through turn 9. He's going to hold it into turn 10. Down towards 11 and 12 we go for the final time in this race. Who's going to end up finishing off on the podium here? Because Ronhar's currently off of it. He drops down to P4. He's got Azildrim to worry about behind. As they make their way through turn 14, Azildrim goes for a send. That's not going to work, but we go back to the front of the field, and Alfie Butcher with a superb move into turn 12. He made it 3 wide, and he's going to make it a P1 here at Abu Dhabi. It's Alfie Butcher that wins the opener here. 2nd place goes to Freddie Rasmussen, and Tamas Gell displaces Thomas Ronhar from the podium and finishes in 3rd for Audi.
That is absolutely unbelievable. It all happened at the end, and due to the battling for 2nd place on that last lap, Alfie Butcher finds himself through to the win, and he was doing the patient game for so long. He knew that he needed to try and fight his way up. He got 2 places in 1 corner to try and take the lead, and he gets his reward by the end. Our race winner to kickstart season 24, and it was a dramatic last few laps and the final part of that race where it was all kicking off basically everywhere in the field, but it is Alfie Butcher, P1.
Indeed, his 2nd win here in WOR. It's Butcher who takes it ahead of Rasmussen, and Tamas Gal will finish in 3rd ahead of Thomas Ronhar, who will feel so disappointed of losing out on what could have been an easy win for him ahead of Danny Baruchnet. A really good performance holding on his older tyres in 5th ahead of Julian Klaffenbach, who for me is one of the drivers of the day. Started 19th and has got himself up into the... started 13th, dropped to 19th and got himself up into the top 6. We have Godendorp in P7 ahead of Azildrim in 8th, 9th for Halliday, 10th for Gabor Chontos. Kudos to the Hungarian who finishes up in the top 10. And we have Jona Watme who missed out on points, but that strategy nearly worked for the Dutchman. Ahead of Angelo D'Ortenzio in 12th. It was Pookie 13th. 14th for Fassi ahead of Rapassa. Lawrence in 16th. And we did lose Donoso, Boromond, Kroos and Manley, Idowu and Pedreño. Miami, we can breathe. What a race that was to kickstart F1 26 here on WOR.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely unbelievable. That is incredible. And, you know, Opme even fought his way by up there. Very nearly got into that top 10. We were, you know, debating on how that strategy would work, and he very nearly got there. So that was absolutely phenomenal. And that's the thing, you know, you were thinking about some good storylines that could possibly emerge by the end of the race. We couldn't even focus on some of those good stories just because of the pure chaos and the pure drama that was taking place on that circuit. And what an incredible way to kick start our season 24.
That was something else. Oh my, I've not seen a race like that in WOR for a very, very long time. We're going to hope to get a chat from one of the top 3. I don't know why I've asked Freddie Rasmussen to come in, because I know for a fact he won't. But I'm sure we'll see Butcher and Tamas Gal pop in for a nice chat, as they generally do when they finish up in the top 3. So we'll wait for those 2 to pop in. But Ome, I mean, that's a way to kickstart your season as well, isn't it? That was something else.
It really, really is. That is very much just pure WOR Tier 1. We've had a lot of iconic moments over the seasons, and we very much started off by adding some more straight away with round 1.
Indeed, and we have got Tamas Gal in to the interview room, so we'll quickly drag Tamas Gal in. Tamas, welcome in. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect, and of course, after what's been a tough couple of years in the F1 scene, you get a podium, first race on F1 26 here in WOR. I mean, surely that's a bit of a sigh of relief that eventually, once again, you can get yourself back up in the top 3.
Yes, it's a very, very big relief after these 2.5 years that has been, you know, there have been a lot of unlucky moments. I've been also sometimes slow in the race, unlucky moments, just, you know, everything was just keeping up and up, and I finally managed to get a podium.
Certainly, and of course it was a great fight through the race. I mean, in terms of strategy and trying to work your way forward, I mean, was that the key thing there, or was it a lot of that down to your race pace and just knowing where to pick off moves?
I mean, starting from P9, I knew that undercutting will probably not be a thing because if you watch the league race from yesterday, I think a lot of people lost out actually who undercutted, and I wanted to go long, and for my luck actually, Otis just came out in front of me when when he boxed, and he was just carrying me throughout the whole field. And for my surprise, it was actually he spun out of the last corner, so that was also a moment which helped me because he helped me to the train and then he spun out. So and then
Indeed.
I could just um, use my tire advantage against the others.
Of course, and I mean, heading into next week as well, we head on to Saudi Arabia, round 2 of the championship. I mean, what's your hopes heading into that one?
Jeddah is one of my best tracks actually. Also, not just one of my best. I just really like to drive on it. It will probably be quite a bit different compared to the previous years because we just need to lift a lot in this game. So it will be probably not as fun as to watch because it will be probably even more chaos than in the previous years. But I'm really looking forward to it.
Certainly, well, Tamas, well done on the podium. Long overdue for sure, and hopefully we'll see you back up near the top next time out as well in Saudi Arabia. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. So have a good one, mate.
Yep. See you. Good night.
And there we go. Oh, mate, great to speak to Tamas Gal, third place. Alfie Butcher's not joined the interview room just yet, so we'll hang on for a moment and see if he does pop in eventually. I'd imagine it's debrief time quickly with the engineers. But I mean, we'll just talk about him for a moment. What a race that was, of course. Was in? Is it? We'll bring him in now. Actually, Omi. Never mind. We'll bring him in. Have a chat with our race winner, Alfie Butcher.
Yeah, absolutely. Now joining us is the driver who has ended P1. Alfie, great to have you with us. What a race for you. Third to first with that overtake at turn 12. How was it?
Yeah, it was a good race. I think we managed it quite well. Had to make some pretty good moves during the race to get back into P3 after the pit stops because we got undercut by a few cars, but worked out well in the end. Got back to position pre-pit stop, and yeah, just trying to put the pressure on the leaders really for the remaining laps, and it clearly worked out at the end. I think we ended 3 wide at one point.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't think that was intentional, but yeah, I think we'll see what the stewards say about that. But I think I did anything wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And from your perspective, was it just basically sit back and let the two ahead go for it?
Yeah, I think normally in like these sort of races, it's just you sort of have to wait for an opportunity. I think my opportunity was there where they were sort of backed up a little bit, and I had an overspeed into that long left-hander. So yeah, I think that was sort of the game plan, just hope for an opportunity, because otherwise I would have left myself vulnerable to cars behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, we'll see what these stewards say about all the other things that were going on, but it looked very much clean from yourself. Next time out, we are heading to Jeddah. Do you know whether you'll be racing? And if yes, thoughts on the circuit for yourself?
Yeah, I'll be racing. Yeah, I think it's the track where I've had success in the past, so yeah, I'll be looking forward to it.
Perfect. Going to be a lot of fun. Well, congratulations on the victory. Go and enjoy it. And we look forward to seeing what you can do in a week's time at Jeddah.
Cheers, boys.
All right, there we go, Alfie.
Perfect.
Great to talk to Alfie Butcher there. Your race winner from Rain 1 of the championship. We'll pop ourselves back on the camera screen, and what a race that was to open up the championship. I mean, when you've got Ron Har and Rasmussen at the front, it's always going to be fuel for chaos. And then you had Alfie Butcher just chime in at the right time to make the move and go through and take the lead. And then you had whatever that was behind with Rasmussen, Ronhart, Gal, I think you had Berejne, and also Azildrim there as well, all fighting for second place. And in the end, it was always a gamble of who was going to finish there, because you never really know when you've got a couple of corners to go. Everybody's fighting to get themselves onto the podium, but in the end, it's going to be, of course, Butcher, Rasmussen and Tamas Gal, the top 3 from that one. And of course, heading into next week, mate, I'm even more excited because Jeddah is going to be the track we're going to. I'm not here, unfortunately. I'm at a National League Cup game, which I'm sure is going to be a lot less entertaining than this. I hope no one's watching. That's I'm going to be working with. But either way, no, Jeddah's going to be insane. It's going to be a great one to watch alongside. I mean, for you, Omi, what are you expecting going into that, just based off what you saw today?
Well, I think it very much could be what we saw today, but just upped by a few levels, really, because the type of the type of circuit that Jeddah is, and then combine that with the regulations that we've got, it is going to be quite something. You're going to get more moments of where the drivers are 3 wide, where they're very close to the barriers, and it's all just getting a little bit dramatic, let's just say. And possibly in those final stages, it all could go a little bit wild, like we just saw earlier on. So we'll keep an eye and see what will go on at Jeddah. But yeah, I expect it to be what we saw today, but possibly to an even extreme level.
Certainly, as we come to what's been the end of a great night here in WOR. Of course, a big thanks to Gridfinder, Go Setups and Next Level Racing, our sponsors for this season of WOR. Of course, make sure to keep up with the action of Tier 2 and below on Monday. And then on Thursdays, I believe it's all the same, we have the console tiers as well as Legacy Division is back as well. Lots going on here in WOR as we kick off a brand new game cycle here on F126. Of course, Omi, thanks for being alongside me. It's been a pleasure to work with you as always. And of course, a big thanks to the drivers, to Luke as well, who's of course organised everything, and then to you in the chat who with us every race, supporting the drivers and of course supporting us as well. We'll be back next week, round 2 of the championship. We head to Saudi Arabia, but until then, have a good week, have a good weekend. We'll see you next week. Good night.